Welcome into Tiger Talks Wrestling. I am your host, Tony. I am joined today by my co-host, Mr. Awesome, and our very special guest.
Come on.
Hello there, everybody. Hola, mundo. Hello, world. We are here today to talk 40 years of WrestleMania, as you can see. Eddie, can you believe it? This year is the 40th edition of the Juggernaut, the Showcase of the Immortals.
No, I can't, but being a long-time wrestling fan like me, who has been to the first WrestleMania in 1985, yes, folks, I am that old. 43 years old. I was 4 years old when I went to my first WrestleMania, and that was WrestleMania 1 at my hometown, New York City, at Madison Square Garden.
Nice. I wasn't even born yet come WrestleMania 1, so.
Being a man that was born in 1981, you have no idea how back then, folks, if I could tell you in a way, it would shock you. WrestleMania back then in the day was no way like it is today. You know, it wasn't that glitz and glam. It was...
I think you cut out of there a little bit. It's saying WrestleMania we know now, with all the pyro and fireworks and all that jazz, isn't what you see back then.
No, when you have Liberace... Yeah, when you have Liberace and Muhammad Ali and Cyndi Lauper and, you know, Billy Martin, New York Yankee manager, former New York Yankee manager. Yeah, you can't, you know, Tony, if you were there, you know, we're born the same year. You know, I think you would have had fun because people back then didn't know if WrestleMania was going to work out. And it did. You know, and look at where we're at.
And I can't forget the Rockettes were there as well.
Oh my God, yes. I wasn't into the Rockettes back then. Oh my God. You know, because I was a little boy, but now, like, yummy.
Well, of course not.
Yeah. WrestleMania. Bless you. You hit up good. There you go. Now it's more of this.
There we go.
Yeah.
We got more of you, Eddie.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to apologize to everybody. I just came back from work and shut up, Alexis. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. I just want to apologize for being on my phone. I just got back from work and I have been looking forward to this. And now let's move on to our favorite WrestleManias. Okay, so, well, we got to go with the first one. So, I'm going to let you start because you're the host. What was your favorite WrestleMania moment from WrestleMania 1?
I will go over the entire card here in a few minutes, but I mean, how do you not talk about WrestleMania 1? There's two things I feel like really have to be talked about. That first thing comes to mind, Andre the Giant, Big John Studd, the body slam match.
Yes.
Body slam challenge, if you will.
Yes.
Where Andre slammed Big John Studd. Two big men in there, career versus $15,000. And Andre managed to get the slam and win the $15,000, which he would then take, of course, and start throwing the cash into the crowd before Bobby the Brain would manage to get the bag away from Andre.
Most definitely. I agree with you with that. That was, let me say this, for people that don't know how big Andre and Studd was, they basically, both of them could cover your whole body, because especially Andre was so big, but he was well loved. Well, 2 years after, and then people hated him.
Right.
But, feeling Andre pick up Big John Studd, slam him on the mat, you basically saw the ring move. Because when you're in a live crowd and you're seeing that as a kid, and you're seeing that ring move almost an inch, the only thing I was worried as a kid was the ring going to fly off, was a turnbuckle going to fly off and hit me in the head.
Right? At 4 years old, of course, yeah. I mean, so many people talk about the body slam from WrestleMania 3, but like that slam at WrestleMania 1 is a little underrated and doesn't get talked about as much as it should.
Most definitely. I understand why people talk about WrestleMania 3, Pontiac Silverdome. No, it's not and by the way, folks, Pontiac Silverdome is not in New Orleans, like Hulk Hogan said.
Right? At WrestleMania 30?
Yeah. Yeah. In my opinion, WrestleMania, the first two WrestleManias, was a kick in the door for the World Wrestling Federation, now WWE.
Right.
WrestleMania 3, and we'll get to that pretty soon. WrestleMania 3 basically made WWE what it is today. And sorry I'm going off track, but I'm just trying to tell everybody, you're going to enjoy this. Because with me and Tony, we know, and by the way, Tony, we have to say this. We appreciate whoever is online to drop a comment. Tell what your favorite WrestleMania moment is. It could be your favorite WrestleMania moment. Yeah, your favorite WrestleMania moment. People that are on a live stream could be Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam Bigelow at WrestleMania 11. I'm sorry.
We'll get into that later.
I couldn't hold it.
I don't blame you.
Oh my God. But yeah. So now let's go back to WrestleMania 1. Tony reads this card. It's a who of Hall of Famers and future Hall of Famers that going into the Hall of Fame this year. And there's a guy that's in this match. He was at WrestleMania 1 who became a clown in 1993.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Nobody knows about this, and is it okay to say it?
Yeah, let's get into that.
Whatever way you want to do it. Everybody don't know Matt Bourne. If you
I'll
haven't
just
watched
run down the card real quick.
Sure, let's go do that right now.
Yeah. Yep. And when I get to that match, which is only the third match on the show, then you can mention what you're going to say about Matt Bourne.
Yeah.
The show kicked off with a almost 5-minute match that actually saw Tito Santana defeat the Executioner. We'd later years in the 90s know of an Executioner in WWE. Much different than this version of the Executioner, by the way. But the one thing that's interesting for this take is Tito Santana actually won a match, for one. He didn't do a whole lot of that, it seemed like. And two, he won by submission as well for the very first match in WrestleMania history.
Oh my God, that's right.
So then from that, yeah. We go into the first ever squash match in WrestleMania history, as King Kong Bundy, with Jimmy Hart as his manager, would beat Special Delivery Jones. Not much else to say about that other than King Kong Bundy got the first history-making moment when it comes to short matches anyway. But then we get to the match you were mentioning, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat defeating Matt Bourne. Go ahead and finish what you were saying about Matt Bourne from there.
Okay, so first of all, you got to give it up to the first match. Got to give it up to Chico Santana. Like Jesse Ventura talked about it.
Yes.
You got to say he was a great guy, and I think the Executioner was another wrestler, but I forgot his name. And all that. It was on his boots. If you look at his boots at WrestleMania, it actually tells his real name, but I forgot it. And then we knew Bundy was going to win because everybody used to call ST Jones, STD Jones, because they knew every time he was in the ring with somebody, he would lose. But Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, what can you say about the Dragon? Hell of a competitor, hell of a Hall of Famer. And then now let's go to Matt Bourne. Matt Bourne, first match in the WWF was as himself. Then towards 92, 93, Matt Bourne came back to the WWE. And before he went from WWE, he was in WCW as Big Josh.
Oh, I did not realize that.
He was Big Josh from the mountaintop, and he used to be accompanied by two bears.
Interesting.
If you ever
look that one up later.
Yeah, if you ever go on Peacock, type in Big Josh, and he had a couple of matches there, and I think one match he had was against Adam Bomb.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Matt Bourne came back to WWF and basically became the evil clown Doink. And people, if you don't know about Doink the Clown, I mean, watch WrestleMania 9 against Kona Crush. I mean, that was the last time you see a Matt Bourne, because Matt had some, may he rest in peace, Matt had some demons that he's no longer with us, but what a generation talent he was. He just couldn't get himself right. But if you want to learn more about Matt Bourne, the wrestler, and his character, Doink the Clown, go on the internet, people, or watch Tiger Talk Wrestling, because we could tell you a lot about Doink the Clown. That's what we're here for.
That's true. That is very true. All right. From there, we got Brutus Survivor Beat, who at the time was managed by Johnny Valiant. There's a name from the past. Wrestled David Sammartino, who many people I feel like don't really know David that well. But he had his dad, the legendary Bruno Sammartino, in his corner. And those two would be in the first ever match that would end in a double disqualification in WrestleMania history. So we had a lot of firsts there at WrestleMania 1. Yeah, like I said, I mean, we've seen some of David Sammartino talking wise. He, I believe, was the one that inducted his dad, Bruno, into the Hall of Fame a few years back, 10 years ago or whatever long ago it was. But still, you didn't never really see him wrestle a whole lot in WWE. But he had that big match at WrestleMania 1.
Yeah, David, basically, I think Vince and Bruno got into an altercation, and I think it just messed up David's career in WWF. Yeah, you really didn't see that much of that group. But talk about the dream team. I mean, Brutus Beefcake and Greg the Hammer Valentine. I mean, that was a good team. I mean, if you watch the Dark Side,
we're not talking about that team yet, but yeah.
But if you watch Dark Side of the Ring, which I did last night, they do talk about Brutus the Barber Beefcake, about his career.
Yeah. That's good. All right. Speaking of the Dream Team, since you mentioned it, Greg Hammer Valentine would be defending the Intercontinental Championship, of course, in the next match, with Jimmy Hart, the Mouth of the South, in his corner. And the first countout in WrestleMania history would happen as Junkyard Dog would beat Greg the Hammer by countout, which means, of course, the Intercontinental Championship stays with Greg the Hammer and does not change hands. But from there, you go in to the first ever WWF Tag Team Championship match, where the U.S. Express walked in as champions, that being Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda, with Captain Lou Albano in their corner, that team, of course, being the tag team inducted into this year's Hall of Fame. But they would be on the losing end as they would drop the tag team titles to Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, with Classy Freddie Blassie in their corner. 6 really big names when it comes to WWE history.
Oh, you have no idea. When you got Captain Lou and you got Classy Freddie Blassie in the same sentence in the same word. Yeah. I mean,
right?
I mean, then you got my favorite wrestler, Sheiky Baby. May he rest in peace.
Yes.
It shows you what wrestling is then, that to now. It's so much star-studded. Yeah, and I can't say anymore how much I praise all them 6 guys about what they did in that day. Even if it was managing and all that, they really show their talent, for the first WrestleMania.
Yeah, it was still a big moment, that's for sure. I will say I'm a little surprised at how short a lot of these matches were. They're mostly 4 to 6, almost 7 minutes long. all except for the Brutus Beefcake David Sammartino match in the main event, which we'll get into in a little bit. From the tag team title match, we'd go into the match I already talked about, the career versus $15,000 body slam challenge, which Andre would beat Big John Studd. And then the WWF Championship would be on the line as Leilani K walked in as champion with the fabulous Moolah, and talked about hardly at all for good reason nowadays, to be honest, and we're going to leave it pretty much at that when it comes to Moolah. Leilani K would drop her title, of course, to Wendy Richter with Cyndi Lauper in her corner, who a lot of people still say should be in the WWE Hall of Fame and is not. Because Cyndi Lauper had a lot to do with the Rock and Wrestling combo.
Yeah. I'm not going to really say what I really think about that. Yeah, we know what. We're not going to talk about Moolah because she don't need the time of day. But how do you not have Cyndi Lauper in the Hall of Fame? I mean, without her, I don't think WrestleMania will be a hit.
Exactly. She had a lot to do with it, so. One day that's got to be rectified. Let's hope sooner than later. And of course, from there, you go into the biggest main event that they could give you at the time, pretty much. Main event that's still talked about to this day, as you got the immortal Hulk Hogan, the WWF champion, teaming up with one of the greatest boxers at that time. I mean, you two greats in this match, really, boxers. But, of course, not only boxer, but actor. He was one of the first ever really crossovers from sports into acting in Hollywood, besides Hulk, who would join in. That, of course, being Mr. T. They would have in their corner Superfly, Jimmy Snuka, as they would defeat Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff, and, of course, the Rowdy Scott himself, Hot Rod, Rowdy Roddy Piper. And they would have Cowboy Bob Orton in their corner with Muhammad Ali as a special guest referee.
And you forgot
so
one.
Many,
and you forgot one, too.
Names in there. I mean, Pat Patterson, of course, was a referee for that match.
Yep, Patterson.
Who did I forget?
No, Pat Patterson. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Pat Patterson was the in-ring referee. Who's that jumping out the sky? We got Busta, or former Busta, Kevin, in the chat section.
Nice.
Welcome in, man. Leave us your favorite parts as well, Kev. What can you say, really, that hadn't been said about that WrestleMania 1 main event, though? I mean, so many eyes were glued to that match, and so many things have evolved from that match, I would say, to end the first WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at where we're at. Look at where we're at now with live streaming. I mean, back then it was closed circuit TV.
Right.
I mean, WrestleMania.
And it was.
I mean, if you couldn't watch it there live, you go to a local theater. I mean, hell, they did that until maybe right after WrestleMania 6, and then they stopped it because that's when cable was coming in. You know, so. You know, I mean, if you look at.
It is true. And I'm not good. No, go ahead.
Yeah. If you look
at
it, that WrestleMania basically took the territories, what they had back then, and
Yeah.
destroyed it.
That is true.
Daddy
That they
laughed
did do.
so hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin's being Kevin. So I'm not going to read the results for every single WrestleMania, but I wanted to make sure we got the results in for that one because that was the very first WrestleMania, of course. But
most definitely,
we'll go over our favorite moments from each WrestleMania. Otherwise, we'd be here for hours.
Yeah.
Kevin, Kevin says WrestleMania 17 X7 will always be my favorite because it was my very first Mania I ever saw. That being your case, my first ever, I've never been to a WrestleMania in person, but seen live on pay-per-view was WrestleMania 10. So that's always carried a big spot in my heart. So I understand that. And we'll get more into those WrestleManias as we get to them here in a little bit.
I don't want to say this because I feel like I'm making myself even older. You know. My favorite WrestleMania was WrestleMania 4. Seeing Randy Savage win the World Wrestling Federation Championship in one night.
Don't blame you.
I thought that was an excellent WrestleMania for him.
Favorite of mine to watch. Kevin says my first one I saw live was the one with the first Money in the Bank, big time, WrestleMania 22.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I could have said WrestleMania 1 because I was.
Move on.
I could have said the first WrestleMania 1 because I was there, but I felt WrestleMania 4 was good.
Yeah, it was really good. So let's talk a little bit about WrestleMania 2 now. The one thing that sticks out, I feel like, in a lot of people's minds when it comes to WrestleMania 2 is it's the only WrestleMania in the history of WrestleMania that's emanated from 3 different locations. Of course. Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Uniondale, New York, the Rosemont Horizon in Rosemont, Illinois, and then in the LA Memorial Sports Arena, the infamous sports in Los Angeles, California. When you talk about WrestleMania 2, not only do you have that in mind, I feel like the biggest match that most people talk about from WrestleMania 2 has to be what transpired after what happened at WrestleMania 1 in the main event. That being, of course, the match between Mr. T and Rowdy Roddy Piper, the boxer versus wrestler match.
You know, I'm going to bounce off of that with you. I agree with you because, was the card a little unorthodox? Yes, because it was in 3 different locations. But the atmosphere in that arena, because I was also at WrestleMania 2 because of it, that match got a lot of heat, man. People were just having fun, and that was the main event. Because each show, each venue had four matches.
Yep.
Yeah, so I agree with you.
The most matches in WrestleMania history at that point.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to go off with you with that. Yeah. My hands down is the Piper versus T in a boxing match.
Of course, Mr. T won that match by DQ as Piper slammed him. But I mean, I'm looking at the card. There was a lot of bigger names on this show. Terry Funk was even on the show when him and Haas Funk defeated Tito Santana and Junkyard Dog in LA. Of course, the other match that really gets talked about besides that boxer versus wrestler match between Mr. T and Piper, which I feel like is still the biggest match from the show, was Hulk Hogan and King Kong Bundy for the WWF Championship inside the steel cage. Rightfully so, I feel like the Piper and T match is talked about a little bit more because it was more mainstream, I would say. But Hogan and Bundy inside the cage was a pretty decent match as well for two bigger guys going at it inside of a cage.
Yeah, I mean it was, and then I think they also had, wasn't the British Bulldogs against the Dream Team for the tag team titles?
Yes, that was the main event in Chicago.
Yeah.
Where the Bulldogs won the tag team titles.
I thought the funniest one, and I'm sorry to say it about Randy, but Randy Savage versus George the Animal Steel for the Intercontinental title.
Yeah. Right. Randy won that match, so.
Yeah.
It would, of course, that match is part of what would set up the following year's match, too, which we'll get into in a moment.
And then, what the hell's that? What the hell's that hillbilly? Uncle Elmer, or I know he wrestled.
Yeah, he wrestled Adrian Adonis in Chicago as well. Or in LA,
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, that match was no stars. I mean, except Adrian Adonis. But yeah, that match was horrible.
I mean, it even had a flag match on that show. We had the WWF versus NFL Battle Royal that Andre won. And even Ricky the Dragon Steamboat went against Hercules Hernandez as well. So,
oh my God. Have you seen Hercules Hernandez?
A lot of big names.
Have you seen Hercules Hernandez from the one we knew from WrestleMania 4 and 5 to when he first debuted? He looks like something out of a crazy a crazy clown. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I guess I haven't really watched it that close.
Yeah.
All right. So we move on to WrestleMania 3. Is there anything else you want to add from WrestleMania 2 first?
No, I've been waiting for the next one like forever. Let's just move on to that.
So many big things I feel like happened at WrestleMania 3. Some big things happened at WrestleMania pretty much, but WrestleMania 3, of course, once I get it fully loaded here, is the one where we mentioned a little bit during WrestleMania 1. The body slam heard around the world. Of course, the main event, the immortal Hulk Hogan beating Andre the Giant, ending Andre's undefeated streak of 15 years, I think, or something like that.
It was
and slamming this Giant, being the first ever person to slam the Giant. Yeah. Earth-shattering, but I still feel like it was a huge moment, but there was one match that outdid that match on that card, and one match on that card that I still say is one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania in WWE history, period. Yes, that match indeed. The Macho Man, Randy Savage. Ooh, yeah.
The cream of the crop.
The Dragon, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, in an instant classic.
Okay, I can admit, I was a Hulk Hogan fan, and I was waiting for that match to see Hogan Andre. But Randy and Steamboat, man, they put on a. They basically, I was saying to somebody that was watching me, I said, this is going to go down as one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. I feel like Randy and Macho Man and Steamboat stole the show. No offense to Hogan and Andre, but Savage and Steamboat stole the show.
Down. And it was a loaded card because it was another show. It was the first show. I mean, this was the first time in WrestleMania history, though, you'd see the King Harley Race, not known as at that point in time, but he'd be in action beating Junkyard Dog in a loser must bow match. And a lot of names, the Can-Am Connection, defeating Bob Orton and Magnificent Morocco on there. Billy Jack Haynes versus Hercules. Of course, you had Hillbilly Jim with the Haiti Kid and Little Beaver, the midgets, going up against King Kong Bundy, Little Tokyo, and Lord Littlebrook as well, which is something that you see highlights of even to this day as well. WrestleMania 3.
Oh, damn it, Bundy. You know.
Of course, the Dream Team, the Joe Brothers, Roddy Piper. So many good matches. And when you talk about WrestleMania 3, you can't forget not only that was in the Pontiac Silverdome, but it also had an appearance by Alice Cooper as well.
Oh, yeah, coming out with Jake. I mean, yeah, that was
another mainstream person involved. Yes. And chasing after Jimmy Hart with the snake in his hands.
Yeah. Yeah. But Tony, you forget there was also a debut in a 6-man tag and at WrestleMania. You had the British Bulldogs and Chico Santana going up against the Hart Foundation and the recently suspended for life Dangerous Danny Davis.
Danny, yes. That was definitely the debut worth mentioning from there. The Hart Foundation and Danny would pick up a win over Tito Santana and the Bulldogs. So
yeah,
cheating, but still they won.
Yeah, and I think the
the hardest when you
what is it? The Can-Am Express
was Can-Am Connection.
It was Rick Martel and Tom Zank, right? I can never say his name right.
Yep. Yeah, that's his name. They defeated Cowboy Bob Orton and the Magnificent Morocco in the opening match.
Yeah.
Hey, big time Mike. Good. When you talk about that 6-man tag match, though, and the debut of Dangerous Danny Davis, the one thing to take out of that match, and it's hard to say that this was only 33 or 36, 37 years ago, but there's only 2 of the 7 people from that match, still 3 people out of those 7 that are still living.
I know it's what? Tito, Brett, and Jimmy Hart?
And the Mouth of the South. Yep.
Holy wow.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's
Don't
why
make me cash in like Seth Rollins. We'll get into that in the future, but
that's why you're the genius.
sure, but no, this wasn't Flair and Dragon, John. This was Savage and Dragon. WrestleMania 3. Get your straight.
Oh shit. No, I think Flair and Dragon was after
John's, of course, at
WrestleMania.
work at the moment. So
I think Flair and Dragon was after WrestleMania. I think.
Jeez. Yeah, I think you're right. But that's for another story, another time. Any other moments that you want to mention or matches to talk about from WrestleMania 3, or are we going to move on to Caesar's Palace?
Let's go to Caesar's Palace, and let's go to WrestleMania 4. In the Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino.
Yes. Of course, first of 2 back-to-back years that we have WrestleMania in that arena. But the biggest story going into WrestleMania 4, of course, was the Hogan and Andre situation, where Andre the Giant had defeated Hulk Hogan. I'm putting quotes around defeated Hulk Hogan to win the WWF Championship, and then would award it to the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. Through all of that, and the referee swap, if you will, the first time Dave and Earl Hebner would both be in the same arena, pretty much. To the title becoming vacant, and WrestleMania 4 would be the first and so far only WrestleMania that would have an entire tournament take place in one night, which would later we'd see transform into the King of the Ring tournament and King of the Ring pay-per-view, just now with the title online. But this is where that all happened, and of course, we seen one man go through all 4 rounds to pick up his first WWF Championship in WWE at the time. Yes, indeed. As we would see, since we're mentioning him, and he was the one that did it, 4 big names. He would beat Butch Reed in the first round of the tournament. He would then go on to defeat Greg the Hammer Valentine in the quarterfinals, defeat the One-Man Gang by disqualification in the semifinals, and that would lead to the Macho Man, Randy Savage, going one-on-one with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, in the finals. And not only do people talk about the tournament altogether, but that match was probably one of, if not the best matches on that entire card, I felt like. The main event.
Again, yeah, I felt because it was close to the home, so I was there for the first 4 and 5. There was a lot of short matches. If you go back into
That's
your
true.
archives of it, half of these matches didn't get that much time.
Yep.
But
right. The longest match was a 15-minute first round time limit draw between Jake the Snake and Ravishing Rick.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that good of a it was a good tournament, but I think the right guy won. And at the time, Randy was hot, and
Yes.
Randy is the only guy from that era to ever have the World Wrestling Federation title have Velcro on it.
Oh, that's an interesting fact.
If you look at the belt,
Of course, outside of the yeah.
If you look at the belt at WrestleMania 5 when he had the belt, when we get to the next one, they're two different belts because when he came in, the belt you could see the Velcro, but when Hogan won it, you could see the strap because Hogan liked the straps. Randy hated straps. He liked his belt really tight to him.
It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Macho Man could pull it off, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But besides talking about, of course, the tournament, which was a huge part of WrestleMania 4, they start off that battle royal that you see Brett get last eliminated by Bad News Brown. Brett kind of had his face turn after that match, as he was a heel as part of the Hart Foundation, all of his career in WWE at that point. You had Warrior versus Hercules on the card as well. The Intercontinental Championship on the line between Brudai and Honky Tonk Man. The tag as the Islanders and Bobby the Brain went against the Bulldogs and Coco Beware. And of course, I feel like the biggest match that happened outside of the tournament on that show was the tag team title match, actually. Strike Force, Chico Santana, and who'd later become the model, Rick Martel, defending against Demolition. As Demolition would win the tag team titles.
Was it their second reign that was the longest or their first one?
That's a good question. I want to say it was their second reign, I think, but I won't swear to it without double checking.
Yeah.
And I know I feel like they both were pretty lengthy reigns, though. Those
yeah.
Were the first two.
Oh, and speaking of the tournament, still to this day, and I know he's been passed on, I still think that George the Animal Steel never got into the ring. So he should be still waiting at Caesar's Palace to get into the ring for WrestleMania 4.
What was... They didn't even have him listed for any of the matches that happened. Of course, Virgil was a part of that show, too. In the corner of the $1 Million Man.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Like I said, a lot of the matches were short. But we got to what we needed in the main event as the Macho Man walked out WWF champion. That brings us from there. 4-hour spectacular. Yeah. WrestleMania has always been pretty long. Move on from WrestleMania 4 to, of course, the implosion or the explosion of the Mega Powers. WrestleMania 5. As the year-long reign of the Macho Man, Randy Savage, would go up against the immortal Hulk Hogan as the Mega Powers exploded in the main event. Again, another show in Trump Plaza. 14 matches on the card. Was all headlined by Hogan and Savage as Hulk Hogan had the main event 5 had the main event 4 out of the first 5 years at this point. He was a part of that main event at WrestleMania 4 because he helped Randy beat Ted DiBiase. This WrestleMania was pretty big. Again, a lot of big names. I mean, you see the Rockers pretty much for the first time. The Bushwhackers in there. The Blue Blazer would actually have a match against Mr. Perfect. We all know who the Blue Blazer ended up being.
Yep, may he rest in peace.
Yeah, the Brainbuster. Yes. We had the Brainbusters make their WrestleMania debut as they beat Strikeforce. Which actually, that match was a huge match when you talk about WrestleMania 5 because it was there where the Brainbusters beat Strikeforce, and then Rick Martel would turn on Tito Santana. And we'd get the model out of that turn.
Yeah, and that lasted 7 years.
Only 7? Oh. One of the biggest WrestleMania history, a match that is included in the showcase of WrestleMania WWE 2K24, as the Ultimate Warrior would lose the Intercontinental Championship to Ravishing Rick. After the Warrior had squashed Honky Tonk Man to end Honky Tonk Man's, at that time, longest reigning Intercontinental Championship reign at SummerSlam the year prior.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, it's hard to call that an upset when
yeah, that was a match that nobody ever expected Rude to win.
Let's not take anything away from Rick Rude. Like I said, he had been WCW champion, but he hadn't really done much of anything in their company at that point, up to that point. Nothing that big, anyways.
Wait, so you're not accounting that he won the Jesse the Body Award?
Sure, really matters. So.
I mean, if you
go that
back
route, he lost the pose.
You should hear how. Rumble. Yeah, if you go back to the commentating, you can hear how Ventura's like slobbing over him. He won the Jesse the Body Award. You know, Gorilla. What are you talking about?
Yeah, those two always perfect on commentary together. Jesse the Body and Gorilla Monsoon. Might add. What other matches or moments stick out in your mind when it's WrestleMania 5? Like I said, of course, a lot of people talk about Hogan and Savage, the implosion of the Mega Powers, which Hogan would win back the WWF Championship, of course, after a year reign for the Macho Man. But another 14 matches on that card, loaded card, that's for sure.
Okay, so I'll give you my best. My best was the Hogan Savage match. Hands down, we know that match is going to be good. My worst,
right?
And this is something I would never say. My worst was Bobby Heenan versus the Red Rooster.
Yes, the match that happened just before the main event.
Yeah. The most shocking match, and then we'll move on. Nobody expected Strikeforce to break up. That was a complete shock when Rick Martel walked out on Tino Santana. You should have heard the boos, man, and
right.
You should have heard the boos. It was like, oh crap, what just happened? I mean, that was the most shocker, but yeah. And then there was another shocker on that, was the return of Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Right.
In the Piper's Pit with Morton Downey the comedy guy, I forgot what his name is. And Brother Love. Robert
Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was really good, and then it got really weird because after Piper hit him with the extinguisher, he basically ran after him that Pat Patterson had to tackle him.
Morton.
Yeah. Yeah. Then it showed it on pay-per-view, but
of course, Piper used a first damage on him.
Yeah.
Huh. You're right. It was Morton Downey Jr. My bad.
Yeah, I can never get him. Like, wait, he wasn't Iron Man, all about so.
This. No, it was Robert. Yeah. That's something that does get mentioned quite often too. I just forgot it happened at WrestleMania 5 because it was an actual match.
Yeah.
But Piper's Pit, yes, that was a big moment. All right, we'll move into WrestleMania 6. So I'm gonna say, for me, of course, as many people would say, the biggest match on the show was actually the main event. And I don't know, but I still felt like the main event of WrestleMania 6 was the best part of the entire show, personally. You got, of course, the Intercontinental Champion, the Ultimate Warrior, going in there up against the WWF Champion, the Immortal Hulk Hogan, title for title.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, I totally agree with you. The main event at Skydome, Hogan Warrior. Yeah, that was, hands down, that was a good match and all that, and that's what people wanted to see. Yeah, so I totally agree with you that match was top notch.
Of course, one of the other matches that gets talked about from that show, you had Roddy Piper go up against Bad News Brown. How Roddy Piper appeared for that match is what gets talked about a lot, because Piper did his face and body black going into that match, or brown, whichever way you want to call it. Of course, because we all know Bad News Brown was a colored guy. But there's a lot behind that, and I feel like that's something nowadays you definitely wouldn't be able to get away with in this culture.
Yeah, when you saw it, it was like, whoa. I mean, that's why Peacock don't show it. They cut that match out. I mean, it was like you said.
I believe it.
Like you said, I don't think it will fly now. And yeah, I mean, you just put the words in my mouth with that. That was controversial, and that's why Bad News left after WrestleMania. He couldn't take it anymore.
Hey, I can't blame him.
Yeah.
The other match really worth mentioning from WrestleMania 6 was, of course, the American Team, baby. teaming up with Sapphire, as they had Miss Elizabeth actually in their corner, in the first ever mixed tag team match in WWE WrestleMania history, against the Macho King, Randy Savage, and the Sensational Queen, Sherry.
Or
They had a lot of build up to that mixed tag team match.
Like Dusty used to call it. It's a crown jewel, baby.
Exactly. It was nice to see you Mac and Dean get a win at WrestleMania.
And I got to give it up to Sherry Martel.
It would be another really short match on this card, too.
I got to give it up to Sherry Martel.
Yeah.
She really bumped for Sapphire because Sapphire didn't know what the hell she was doing. Right.
That's true. It's very true. Point I was making is there was another really short match. I didn't realize it was this short. A tag team match actually that took place as the Hart Foundation defeated the Bolsheviks, Nikolai Volkov and Boris Zukov, in only 19 seconds.
What was it again? 19 what?
It's something I never realized. The Hart Foundation, 19 seconds.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I never realized. Short. That just about would have had to been ring the bell, get a couple moves in, and then the heart attack, and then 1, 2, 3.
Maybe Jim had to go get a beer.
Maybe.
Like,
you would have thought being in Canada, they would have given Brett and Niven something better.
Yeah.
But of course, Brett wasn't as big of a star yet then as we later become. Anything else?
And this is one side note. WrestleMania 6 was the last match for Andre the Giant.
That was true.
When him and Haku
were team in the opening match of WrestleMania 6, losing effort.
Yep, and the Colossal Connection going up against Demolition for the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team titles.
Demolition would retain.
Actually, they won the belts. They went out the champions. It was Colossal Connection.
They're one. Yeah, you're right. You're right. My bad.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, Johnny Boy.
What up?
Hey.
And
nice
then the other thing, I think that was the WrestleMania that Kurt Hennig lost his first match in WWE.
Probably. He didn't lose, so. Mr. Perfect was on losing end that night, so yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think the only good match, I mean, there was a couple of good matches, but I think the great one was the Ultimate Challenge.
That's for sure. The main event between Warrior and Hogan. So we go from that show into one that I don't think we're really going to have a whole lot to talk about. Because I feel like WrestleMania 7 was kind of a not so great WrestleMania, probably one of the worst of the time, even to today. There was one match on it that I feel like is worth talking about, really, from WrestleMania 7. The rest of the card was pretty just there, I guess you could say. And even the main event was not worth talking about for the most part. The only match I felt like was decent enough to get mentioned and remember from 7, of course, was the WWF Chip match. Nature Boy Ric Flair, Macho Man Randy Savage.
You mean Warrior and Savage?
No, it's
sorry, I'm moving ahead. I was thinking of a different a retirement match between Warrior and Savage. Yes, I was moving ahead a couple a year. Sorry,
It's
7 and
alright.
8 both were not that great, but still.
Yeah, I think that was the only good match of WrestleMania 7. I mean, other than the Rick Martel, Jake the Snake Roberts match and a blindfold match. Yay. And then the WrestleMania streak. And then the WrestleMania streak started with The Undertaker going up against Jimmy Snuka.
Right.
Other than that, the card was garbage.
I mean, I know it wasn't the greatest moment of the show, but it was nice seeing Texas Tornado Kerry Von Erich at a Mania.
That's true.
That's true.
Did Bossman face Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental title at that show?
Yep, and Bossman won it.
He would beat Dino. Yes. By DQ. Andre was.
And then LOD beat Pride and Glory.
Yep. Of course, the main event, Hogan beating Sergeant Slaughter for the title.
Yeah, I mean,
he thought it'd be smart to have Slaughter be a heel and turn on.
1 second, guys. Rhea's gonna lose because you did that.
Did you guys?
Not my fault. You don't want to go hang out with Dracula.
Did you guys happen to see a few weeks ago the biographies for Sergeant Slaughter that was on A&E?
I have, yes.
I haven't.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
That poor guy's family.
Yeah, I heard that they had to move WrestleMania because of security issues.
Yeah.
Hold up, wait
it
a
was
minute.
bomb
Mania, the Nasty Boys beat
at
the
his
Hart
house.
Foundation?
Even. His kids were.
That's BS.
Yes. You're right. But I said 7 and 8 both really were kind of garbage WrestleMania.
The Mountie.
This WrestleMania wasn't supposed to be in the Memorial Sports Arena. That Memorial Sports Arena, it was supposed to be in a bigger venue to begin with, but the whole Sergeant Slaughter fiasco, as we've seen on the biographies episode, led to him having to downsize to the Veterans Memorial Sports Coliseum instead. Arena. because there was a bomb
Wasn't
threat
it supposed to be at the
potential
Forum?
to happen if they had it in the bigger arena. Yeah, it was supposed to be at the Forum, I believe. Anyway, a lot of history to that, and a lot of stories behind all that stuff. Luckily for Slaughter's family, that would be the end of Slaughter the heel, and he'd go back into the good graces. And after that, 7 months later. But yeah, there was a lot of controversy going into that WrestleMania. Actually, Sergeant Slaughter in his biography show said that I think it was, I don't remember if it was Vince's idea or whose idea, but somebody wanted him to even burn an American flag leading up to that match, but he wouldn't do it.
Jesse Ventura.
Burn the whole T-shirt. Yeah, you're right. I think he did say it was Jesse Ventura's idea. But he agreed to burn a Hogan T-shirt instead, so he wasn't going to burn an American flag.
Yeah.
The other abysmal. Really, if you look at it, kind of these three, 8 and 9, were all kind of shitty. But we're still going to dive into it here.
So at WrestleMania 8, when Tatanka beat the crap
this
out
is
of
the
Rick
main
Martel,
match that kind of saved.
wasn't he still undefeated?
Yes. Was what?
Wasn't Tatanka still undefeated?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Because I think the match he lost was before the Survivor Series of '93. He lost to Ludwig Borga.
Yeah.
Who?
Okay, so I take that back. There's
Ludwig Borga was a Sweden wrestler that hated America, and right before the Survivor Series, they crushed his ribs. Supposedly, him and Yoko did it, and that's how the Undertaker came a part of the All Americans with Luger and Steiner against the I've got named the Foreign Fanatics.
Foreign Fanatics.
Yeah.
Yokozuna, Borga. Hell, who else was part of that team?
Crush.
Can't even remember.
I think it was the Mountie too.
I think so.
Because it was supposed to be
I say Savage and Flair.
It was supposed to be Juan Pierre Lafitte, whatever his fucking name is. You know, right on now.
Lafitte.
Yeah, what's his name now on God, I forgot his name. He's still wrestling. But he's wrestling for TNA.
Yeah, he's Impact. Or in TNA.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot the name.
He goes by.
Who was a Latin lover?
Oh,
I can't
God,
think of it
no.
off the top of my head.
QT? No, not QT.
He's a crazy old SOB.
Yeah. Damn, I know the name, but it's Yeah, well, yeah. Let's just move on to WrestleMania because I forgot the name. Damn it.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Besides Savage and Flair, I'd say the only other match Really worth mentioning from this was, of course, the Intercontinental Championship match, Roddy Piper versus where Brett, of course, won the Intercontinental Championship. Waiting for one of you guys to say something. This was where you see Shawn Michaels pretty much start his. You're good. This was where you kind of see Shawn Michaels start his career in a capacity, of course. The main event was, of course, Hogan and Sid. No title on the line, but Hogan would win by DQ. That's the whole Papa Shango bull. You know what? That happened afterwards. Craziness. Why I say Savage and Flair was definitely top of the match, top match on the show. Brett and Piper was not far behind, though. PCO, that's what it was behind.
Yeah, and then this was Jake the Snake Roberts' last WrestleMania until he came back because he went to WCW.
Yeah, and he'd get beat by The Undertaker in The Undertaker's second WrestleMania match.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else to mention from WrestleMania 8? There's an 8-man tag match card, not worth mentioning, really, among other things. So, WrestleMania 9. Where Hulk Hogan, of course, would wrestle twice. Not only Hulk, but Yokozuna would. Main evented, or was supposed to be evented by Bret Hart versus Yokozuna for the WWE win. The title from Bret. And then we get the Hulkster having to steal all the glory, of course, coming out there to check on Bret after the match and get goaded into a match with Yoko and beating Yokozuna in a rather quick match to become the WWF champion for then the final time in his first run in WWE/F.
Can we just say in this WrestleMania, the biggest surprise win was probably Doink beating Crush?
Yes, I would agree. Although, I mean, y'all on this card had Razor Ramon, who was new at the time, beating Bob Backlund as well.
And then you got Tatanka winning the IC title on Shawn Michaels.
No, he won by countout. He didn't win the title.
My bad.
Tatanka was never a champion. Well, maybe a tag team champion, I think.
Yeah, I thought he was tag team with Bam Bam.
The Steiners beat the Head Shrinkers on this card as well. Money Inc. over the Mega Meat.
No, Tatanka and Bam Bam lost to the 1, 2, 3 Ken and Bob Holly at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah. So I said Tatanka might have been a tag champion. I can't remember for sure, but
I don't think
he was never a champion.
I don't think he even won the title in WWE.
And then Tito Santana beat the Godfather. I mean, Papa Shango.
He may not have. Yes, he did. The
He won one thing in the WWF, and that was a Slammy Award for being the greediest in '94.
That Santana Papa Shango match, dark match. It wasn't on the show, but
the only good thing about WrestleMania 9 was the debut.
Now we move on to WrestleMania 10. The debut.
Yeah, Jim Ross debuted at WrestleMania 9.
Can we agree that one of the stupidest matches was, no offense to The Undertaker, but him and Giant Gonzalez was a terrible match?
It was.
Yeah, I got to give it up for The Undertaker to deal with a guy that didn't know.
It was.
I actually thought the Great Khali was the son of the Giant Gonzalez because they both stink.
Yes, they both do suck.
Yeah, but Great Khali was world champion. Gonzalez wasn't.
Yeah, that was by default.
That is true, unfortunately. So we digress, and we'll move on. At least after those three kind of less than WrestleManias, we'd get one of the WrestleManias in WrestleMania 10. Back in New York, Madison Square Garden. You get the show starter, of course, the King of Hearts, Owen Hart, going up against his brother, the first ever brother versus brother match in WrestleMania history. Man, Bret Hart. I would personally say, even to this day, I feel like probably the greatest opening match in WrestleMania history.
100%.
Yep, absolutely.
So what do you guys
Not
think the
take
worst
anything away
match
from
on this
any
card
other
was?
opening matches in WrestleMania history, but I just still feel.
Oh.
And WrestleMania 10? I'd probably go with Earthquake and Atom Bomb.
Well, yeah, that 35-second piece of crap.
Worst match.
Yeah.
Worst match I thought that was crappy was the mixed tag team match between the Doinkster and
the Dinkster.
Yeah, against Luna and Bam Bam.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely between those two matches.
So did you guys enjoy watching the Quebecers lose the titles? Never mind, count out. Sorry, I misread that.
They didn't lose the titles because there was a count out there. But I was a Man on the Mission fan back then. Uh-oh. Eddie on us for a second. Oh, there he is.
There you go. Like, why do we change places?
But yeah, I was a Mabel.
Yeah, I was a huge Viscera fan too.
Trading places again. Uh-huh.
What the hell?
How do you pick a
Okay,
spot?
guys.
I'm trying to, damn it.
But anyway, besides, of course, like we said, the greatest opening match in WrestleMania.
Was WrestleMania 10 where the ladder match?
Yes, it was.
Sweet.
Yes.
And this WrestleMania would have.
Yeah, I would say again, like that opening match at WrestleMania 10.
This WrestleMania was the last WrestleMania for Randy Savage.
Go ahead, Eddie. It was. Going against Crush.
Yeah.
In the fall match. I still think you mentioned the ladder match. I still think it was probably still to this day, the greatest singles ladder match in WWE history. I think a lot of people would agree with that. First ladder match, still, I would argue, one of the greatest, if not the greatest.
Yeah, Sean.
Of course, Yokozuna would defend his WWF Championship twice.
Like you said, Sean and Scott really did an excellent job on that. Their second one was limited because of some stupid thing in the state that they were. They couldn't too much violence, but I think this ladder match was one of the best.
Yeah. Right. Of course, as I was saying, for the second year in a row, Yokozuna would be matches at WrestleMania, defending the WWF Championship against Lex Luger, which Yoko would win by DQ, and then, of course, in the main event, Yokozuna would lose the WWF Championship to the Hitman, Bret Hart. To that point, I feel like WrestleMania 10 was probably not to throw any dirt on the two matches that we said weren't that great on the show, but I still think up and down, this was probably one of the best WrestleManias up to that point.
The only thing that saved WrestleMania 10 was that ladder match. And Bret winning the World Wrestling Federation title from Yoko. I think other than that, the card wasn't that great because WWE was going into the dark era, and they didn't have the mega stars. But I agree with you. It was a couple of good matches that were good.
Great. All right, let's move on. The one that we kind of brought up a little bit earlier. WrestleMania 11. Talk about the Dark Ages. This was where we got our first Diesel-Shawn match, really. Shawn Michaels had won the Royal Rumble in the shortest Royal Rumble match in history. Every minute another participant entered. Shawn won. Entering the one only was like a 40-minute match at that. But we get Shawn Michaels versus Diesel for the WWF Champion. I would say Shawn and Diesel probably the best match on this card, but it still wasn't that great of a match for those two guys.
Undertaker versus King Kong Bundy.
And it also was in Hartford, Connecticut, where it sucks there.
Yeah. mean, The Undertaker beat King Kong Bundy in a match there. Owen and Yoko won the tag titles. Brett Backlund had a I Quit match. But like I said, I mean, Sean had Sid in his corner and Jenny McCarthy. Diesel had not great. You brought it up earlier, Eddie. The main event, of course. Lawrence Taylor, the NFL player at the time, against Bam Bam Bigelow. I love Bam Bam.
Wait, that was the main event?
But
that was the main event of WrestleMania.
Yes, that was the main event.
That's fucked up.
It was.
I was at that event. I was in Hartford for there.
Exactly.
I was at WrestleMania 11. That was the main event. That was trash.
I would have left after the Shawn and Diesel match.
That's what we did.
Makes sense.
Be honest, I only went there for Jenny McCarthy
Right?
and Pamela Anderson.
What, you didn't want to see Pamela?
Oh no, I did. That's why after
I know.
Diesel's match I left.
I don't blame you. I mean, that was the semi-main event, Diesel and Shawn, but still. I don't think there's anything else really worth mentioning from WrestleMania 11. Let's leave it at that, shall we? One of the shortest cards in WrestleMania. We'll move on to something a little bit better. WrestleMania 12. A lot of things happened. Of course, we had this backlot brawl, I believe is what the Hollywood brawl between Piper and Goldust. Dustin's first time in a WrestleMania.
Wasn't this also the first Mania for Vader?
Taker would improve his WrestleMania streak, beating Diesel. Yeah, I believe so. Yep, because him and Owen and Bulldog would start the show beating Ahmed Johnson, Jake the Snake, and Yokozuna.
What a 6-man tag.
Which is sad that Yoko lost. Yoko got 5 minutes with Jim Cornette if his team would have won. What were you saying, Eddie?
What a 6-man tag. Woo! It just blew my mind.
This also was the... Sure. This also was the first WrestleMania for one Stone Cold Steve Austin, who, of course, had the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase in his corner as he defeated Savio by TKO. And also would be the return after a couple of years of the Ultimate Warrior, as he would run through Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And in the main event, of course, the Iron Man match. The one match I feel like is most talked about from WrestleMania 12, deservedly so. Of course, you get the infamous line, "The boyhood dream has come true," for Shawn Michaels. Looking back at that Iron Man match between Brett and Shawn, what do you guys think of that Iron Man match? Has it stood the test of time, or was it too slow, too methodical? I mean, you got one fall. It was after the 60-minute time limit was up.
Be honest, if you go back in time with a lot of Iron Man matches, they're fast-paced and you do all this, you do all that. With Brett and Shawn, they are two technical geniuses. And the way they played it out for 60 minutes and no fall, then they had to go to sudden death. And then Sean became the boyhood dream that he wanted. I feel like that Iron Man match is going to last for the test of time because it was well played out.
I agree. What's your opinion on it, John?
I mean, I agree with Eddie. Will we see another match like that? To that perspective, it's possible if you get the right people, but most likely not. I mean, there will never be another Bret Hart. There will never be another Shawn Michaels.
Right.
Oh, my bad. There is. His name's Johnny Gargano. But other than that,
I agree. I personally don't feel like the. I mean, if your name's our truth, then yeah. But I feel like we'll never see another Iron Man match go 60 minutes with no falls and then go into an overtime.
Yeah.
No, because I mean, we can't even do an Iron Survivor match.
Yeah.
Without having like almost 5 to 7 falls.
And if you go back to this WrestleMania, you have 2 debuts in this WrestleMania. The Wild Man Mark Merrill and Sable.
Just had a segment because they didn't have a match. Yep.
Yeah, they were a part of it, and you know, but, yeah.
Interrupted by Chris Helmsley.
Yeah. Like you said, if this Iron Man will pass the test of time, yes. Is there another one that could compare to them? Maybe Bayley and Sasha from NXT, but nothing like Shawn and
I agree with that.
Yeah, nothing like what Shawn and Brett did. I mean, that's never going to happen again. You know.
Right. All right. The best part of that whole card, even though Piper and Goldust did a really great job throughout the show with their Hollywood Backlot Brawl as well, but that wasn't an actual just wrestling match either. All right. Move on to WrestleMania 13. It's a couple different things you can talk about when you talk about WrestleMania 13. Of course, I think everybody would say the submission match. Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Of course, that would be where you get the infamous picture or the infamous video of Stone Cold Steve Austin, blood dripping down his face as he passes out in the hands of the sharpshooter. Is Ken Shamrock's the referee ringing the bell. Austin passed out. Austin never tapped out.
One of the iconic moments, a double turn between Bret Hart and Steve Austin. Yeah, that's an iconic moment.
Yes.
Every time that you see it, you see Austin and the sharpshooter, and Austin's bleeding and his blood's going in his mouth. I mean, one of the greatest moments in World Wrestling Federation history, and hands down that match, I don't think anybody could compare to matches like that now. I mean, yeah, we got some great talent, but what Brett and Austin did in that match, Austin wasn't a submission. Austin had one move, and that was the $1 million lock, Ted DiBiase's move. He only had one move, or the Boston Crab. I mean, that's it. And that was also the debut of referee Ken Shamrock.
I liked when Rocky beat Rikishi.
I mean, there was other debuts at that WrestleMania as well.
Oh, yeah, the Salt.
I was gonna say that was the other one. Rocky Mayavia's very first WrestleMania match, as he defeated the Sultan to win the Intercontinental Championship, or to retain the Intercontinental Championship. Of course, the main event for that show, which is overshadowed by the submission match, rightfully so, I feel like, would see the Phenom, The Undertaker, win his second ever WWF Championship as he defeated Sid in a disqualification match. Psycho Sid. Yes, I just said that.
Oh, yeah, and then you got the Chicago street fight between Ahmed Johnson and LOD versus The Nation.
Yep. Which, of course, at that time was Farouk, Crutch, and Savio Vega.
Yep.
With PG-13 in their corner.
Oh, my God. I haven't heard that name in... Oh, my God, I haven't heard that name in years.
All right, guys, I'm going to hop off for a little bit because I got to take care of some things. Right. We'll be back on.
All right, man.
All right, sounds good. And can you believe that Rikishi had Bob Backlund and the Iron Sheik in his corner for that match against Rocky?
Good Lord, yes. And The Rock had his dad, Rocky Johnson.
Yep, Rocky Johnson was actually in the crowd. He wasn't technically in his corner, but
yeah, that's what I meant.
He was there. It was pretty decent card, up and down.
Yeah, I felt like.
All right. Anything else you want to mention from 13?
No, I feel like the matches that we talked about were, you got to go with Austin and Brett, and then Taker winning his. I mean, damn, he was there for a long time, and he only wins his. It's 1997, and he only wins his second world title in WWE history. It's like, wow, it took him that long to win in the second.
That's surprising, that's for sure.
Yeah.
After his first run was only a few days, I think, his first reign.
2 days.
Yeah. Before dropping it back to Hogan.
Yeah. The immortal douchebag.
All right. Move on. Yeah. Move on to what I feel like was pretty much the ushering in of the Attitude Era. WrestleMania 14. Of course, I mean, the show starts off with a tag team battle royal which we see a new version of the Legion of Doom, LOD 2000, come out with Sunny as their manager. I wasn't a huge fan of this version of LOD, to be perfectly honest, but it was always good to see LOD get a victory at WrestleMania.
You and me both. It felt watered down. And a decorated tag team like that should not be watered down.
Right? Of course, WrestleMania 14 would be the first time we'd see the light heavyweight championship on the line.
But we can say that Sunny looked yummy.
Well, yeah, Sunny did look yummy. She did.
Yeah.
She looked great in that outfit she wore.
Oh, yes. Oh, what a rush.
You know, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if, with all the allegations against Vince, if Sunny ends up being involved in some of that, but she's got her own issues right now, for that matter.
Yeah.
All right. So, of course, there's three matches that really stick out in my mind when talking about WrestleMania 14. The first being the tag team title match, as you got the New Age Outlaws defending again, not in a traditional match, in a dumpster match. It was the first ever dumpster match, I do believe, at WrestleMania, anyways. Those four guys, I felt like, I mean, of course, Cactus and Chainsaw are the veterans in the match. They've been around a long time, especially when we saw Charlie's Terry Funk. But they still hung out there with the younger guys, Road Dogg and Billy Gunn. And, of course, Cactus and Chainsaw came out with a victory to win the tag team titles. The only time that Mick and Terry would be tag team champions together, I do believe, in any promotion. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty certain that is a fact.
No, you're right. No, I don't.
And then...
Yeah, you're all right.
And, of course, besides that match, I mean, you can expand on that match if you want to, but I'm going to jump to the next match. The very first meeting we got between two brothers that later become the Brothers of Destruction. Of course, the first meeting between the Phenom, The Undertaker, and the Big Red Machine, Kane. In my opinion, to that point, that was probably the best match in The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak up to that to WrestleMania 14. And Taker and Diesel had a really good match, and Taker and Sid was all right, but I still felt like Taker and Kane blew it out.
I just want to say thank you for saying that. You know, because it was, yeah.
That's for sure. And of course, talk about WrestleMania 14. Go without talking about the match that, again, ushers in the start to the Attitude Era. The main event of WrestleMania 14. You got Iron Mike Tyson out there. It's a special ring enforcer. Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels for the WWF Championship. The changing of the guard, if you will. Austin wins the title. Shawn Michaels goes on hiatus, has his back surgery, and is out of action for 4+ years.
Yeah.
Yeah, over 4 years. So, which moment would you say was your favorite moment from WrestleMania 14, match or moment?
My favorite moment was ushering in the Stone Cold Steve Austin era and starting the Attitude Era when he beat Shawn. That was my best, and then my second best was Taker and Kane.
Taker and Kane. I think I might have cut off part of what you were saying. Something about
Yeah, that was my second best was Taker and Kane from that too, and then yeah, so they're my two favorite. There's a third one that you didn't mention, but I thought it was an okay match. It was Triple H versus Owen for the European title with China handcuffs to Slaughter.
yeah, Sergeant Fun, right?
Yeah,
That was pretty good.
yeah.
I agree with that. Also on that card, I mean, they did have Rock versus Shamrock for the Intercontinental Championship as well. Reason going in it, they had said if Rock got disqualified, he would have lost the title, but yet there was Shamrock originally won the title, and then the decision got reversed because Shamrock beat up people after the match. Rock ends up winning by DQ, but still manages to keep the Continental title, I do believe. So,
Yeah.
kind of a screwy situation there.
Yep, way to go, Ken.
I know, right? It was a good match otherwise, but
Yeah.
all right. Then we move on. Years WrestleMania at that point, we'd see the emergence of The Rock as one Via to, of course, becoming a member of the Nation of Domination to eventually becoming corporate Rock, if you will. All of that leading into, of course, the main event at WrestleMania 15 event, this time going up against the corporate champion, The Rock, title at Survivor Series the year prior in a tournament, the Mind Games tournament, if I remember correctly.
Yep. Survivor
That's
Series.
beating Mankind.
Yep.
And of course, the corporation was banned from ringside. Mankind was a special guest referee for the main event at WrestleMania 15. No disqualifications. A lot of things happened. Mankind actually wasn't out there for the majority of the match because it happened earlier in the show between Mankind and Big Show. In Big Show's first WrestleMania, Mankind would win by DQ. Big Show would kind of destroy Mankind after the match. What's your take on everything that happened at WrestleMania 15, more so going into and with the main event match between Austin and The Rock?
The most shocking was DX exploding. Hunter turns on D-Generation X to join the corporation.
Yep.
That was the shocker.
That did
The
happen.
most eerie one was when the Undertaker hung the Big Boss Man in a Hell in a Cell.
Oh yes,
That one,
the very first Hell in a Cell match in WrestleMania history.
that one was like, wow. But
Right.
the Austin Rock, what can you say? These guys were fighting each other for the Intercontinental title, and Rocky was a part of the Nation. I mean, chemistry's there, and old Stone Cold comes out as champ. I mean, you can't say any more about that match. That was a top 10 match. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a really good match. You mentioned Triple H turning on D-Generation X. Of course, that was during the European title match, as he had X-Pac versus Shane McMahon for the European Championship, and that's when Triple H would help Shane O'Mac retain the title. As him and Chyna both would turn. Earlier in the show, Chyna had turned on Kane in the line back with Triple H, and then the turn on X-Pac. So the end of D-Generation X as we knew it at that point.
Yeah, until the end of the year. Then after that, it went really
Of
weird.
course, yeah, it did. Of course, there's one thing that also happened at WrestleMania 15 that a lot of people would rather forget. That being the Brawl for versus Butterbean.
That's why I didn't mention it. Oof.
Well, we got to mention the good and the bad.
Yep. And ladies and gentlemen, you could thank Vince Russo for that garbage.
Right? Thankfully, we haven't seen Brawl for All since. Hopefully, never will.
Oh, please don't bring it back.
All right. Right? They do better be a better turnout. What that one?
Yeah.
WrestleMania 15, which was a pretty decent WrestleMania. It wasn't great, but it had its moments. So you move to WrestleMania 2000, WrestleMania, where in the thick of the Attitude Era, was a WrestleMania without Stone Cold Steve Austin, though. He had been injured late the year before, taken out of action. Instead, this WrestleMania would be the first and only WrestleMania we'd see a fatal four-way match for the WWE Championship to this point. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. WrestleMania 2000, I feel like, will be most remembered, even more so than that, as the place for the first ever triangle ladder match, of course, between the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian for the tag team titles. That match definitely stole the show at WrestleMania 2000.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, three of the greatest tag teams of all time doing it at WrestleMania. I mean, Jeff Hardy, holy crap, what a swanton outside the ring off a ladder onto Bubba. I mean, that is just instant classic. I mean,
yes.
If you get a chance to watch WWE Rivalry on A&E, they talked about their matches together. I mean, yeah, that was one of the highlights of WrestleMania 2000.
Yeah, I'd definitely say probably the best part of the whole. I mean, we'd also see a 2-fall triple threat match for the Intercontinental and European Championships. I mean, the names that the 3 guys that were in that match, obviously one you're not going to hear get mentioned on WWE programming, but that guy did walk out as the Intercontinental Champion. Chris Jericho and Kurt Angle, the other 2 men in there. I'm not even going to say the other guy's name. I mean, if you want to, fine, but he's not worth it, in my opinion, unfortunately, with what he did. Jericho would walk out European champion. Really good match. Definitely an interesting concept to have both titles that Kurt Angle walked in with on the line in 2 different falls in one match.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. Jericho and Angle and that other guy, well, 2 of them deserve the respect and the talent, how what they did on that night. The other one could basically, I don't care. So yeah, I agree with you. It was a
Right.
different concept, thanks to Mr. Backlund.
Right. Y'all's going to have to wait. In full detail. But the main event was the Fatal 4-Way match for the WWE Fatal 4-Way elimination match. Let me correct myself. Where there was a man in every corner. You had the Big Show with Shane McMahon in his corner. Mick Foley had Linda McMahon in his corner. Mr. McMahon was in the corner of The Rock, and Triple H, of course, had his wife Stephanie McMahon Helmsley in his corner. Triple H would walk in WrestleMania as champion and would walk out WrestleMania as champion thanks to a turn from felt like that was a really good match for the 4 guys that were in it, but still almost felt like it was a little too much, and that maybe they should have just did Rock and Triple H for the main event instead.
Yeah. Yeah, it was to me, I thought it was too clunky. Like, technically, if you go back to the actual promotion poster for WrestleMania 2000, it has Triple H, it has The Rock, it has The Big Show, and it has Chris Jericho, who was supposed to be in that match, but out of respect for Mick Foley, he gave up his spot.
Oh, yeah? Guess I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah. There's a promotion. Yeah, there's a promotion poster that has it that. Oh, let me go on. I can actually show you it. See, right now, the promotion poster I have on Wikipedia is with Mick and Linda McMahon. But the original WrestleMania poster had Jericho.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the best part of that WrestleMania was seeing the
definitely that
Godfather
triangle
come out
ladder.
with Cube. Pimp or die.
Right, Ice Cube.
Pimpin' ain't easy, man. Pimpin' ain't easy.
I see. Right. To kick off the show, Ice-T and the Hose, the
Yep.
Godfather and D-Lo.
Oh, I just want to mention Survivor Series, how D-Lo and the Headbangers came out like pimps.
Oh, yeah. That was pretty cool.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember that. All right. Let's move on from WrestleMania 16, no, WrestleMania 2000, into WrestleMania X7. This is one John mentioned was one of his. When I was a kid, WrestleMania X7 was his favorite because it was his first Mania he ever saw. WrestleMania 17 or X7, whichever one you want to call it, definitely was very, very interesting, to say the least. I mean, yeah, Jericho retaining the Intercontinental title over William Regal. To censor involved the hardcore title online and a sick. The women's title, I see China win it for the first time. I'd say there was 4 matches that kind of stick out most in this show, though. The first one being this was when WWE had purchased WCW. But it wasn't Vince McMahon's name on the contract signing WCW. It was Shane McMahon's name on the contract. And that happened just a couple weeks before WrestleMania. And it led to the match between Shane and his father, Vince. The street fight, I believe what it was they had. Mick Foley was the guest referee. To see Linda kind of come out of her state of vegetation, her kick Vince in the crown jewels, if you will, helping her son Shane pick up the win over his dad. Something I don't think many people will ever forget.
Yeah, and plus Shane doing the coast to coast. On Vince.
Yes. Right. How many guys can say they've been able to do stuff like that to their father?
Not many.
Wanted to, for that matter.
Yeah.
And you got that match. There's a lot involved in it. Like I said, with Linda getting involved, and Stephanie was involved there too. We also had The Undertaker versus Triple H for the first time at WrestleMania. Really good match. Taker would win, of course. I'd say, I mean, the year before, I feel like WrestleMania might have outdone it just a little bit in the second ever TLC match between those 3 tag teams. Of course, being Edge and Christian, Dudley's and the Hardys.
Yeah, because this is when they implemented the chair, right?
Yep, TLC, tables, ladders, and chairs.
Yeah, because I remember the first one from the previous year was just the tables and ladders.
Yeah, it's definitely, they had crazy spots in both matches, the triangle ladder match and this, which was the second TLC match that these 3 teams had put on.
Yeah, that was any matches the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian do. It was an instant classic. Now they're just trying to be on life support.
Just about.
Yeah.
And then when you talk about WrestleMania X7, of course, brings you to the main event. The second meeting between Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock for the WWE Championship. The shock of all shocks happened at WrestleMania as Stone Cold would do the unthinkable. He would align himself with the devil. Vince McMahon would help Steve Austin win the WWE Championship to close out WrestleMania. And I mean, they were in Texas for this WrestleMania, and I still feel like the crowd was just in shock and awe as much as people watching around the world were.
Believe me, was I shocked? Hell yeah. I mean, the end of McMahon versus Austin, now aligned by themselves, and good old JR was like yelling, like, what the hell just happened?
Right. I was definitely surprised. Of course, this was the round where you had Jim Ross and Paul Heyman on commentary too.
Oh yeah.
But I think that moment with Vince and Austin aligning is the played the most and talked about the most from WrestleMania 17 outside of the TLC match.
Yep. And that WrestleMania was China's last WrestleMania. Alexa, light off the living room. Alexa, light off the living room.
Okay.
She, of course, China won the women's title from Ivory at that WrestleMania as well.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to WrestleMania 18. Of course, back in Toronto Skydome, the match that was built up the most, I felt like, for this WrestleMania, of course, Icon versus Icon, if you will. The Great One versus the Immortal. The Rock versus Hollywood, Hulk Hogan. Now, back when they were in Toronto for the Skydome at WrestleMania 6, I think the crowd was almost split 50-50 between Warrior and Hogan. But to me, watching this back and still watching it now, I feel like the crowd was more like 70-30 in the corner of Hulk Hogan, who was supposed to be a heel at the time going into this match.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we got Hollywood Rock, because Skydome went legit Hulkamania. I mean, hell, the guy in the crowd bought the old sign of Hulk Hogan's face from WrestleMania 6 to WrestleMania 18.
Yeah. It's crazy, that's for sure. It was surreal at the time to have a crowd be that much against The Rock, who was definitely one of the top baby faces in WWE at that point.
Well, if you look at that, if you go back to that storyline between Rock and Hogan, WWF fans missed Hogan. I mean, when Hogan went to WCW, they really didn't
Right.
get a chance to say a proper goodbye to him. And
True.
I think that match with Rock solidified Hogan back to the red and yellow. And
Yeah.
you could agree with me about this, what your opinion is. I feel like if Hogan wasn't on that card, I feel like the main event would have had been more interesting. I feel like Hogan Rock was the main event. No offense to Hunter and Jericho,
Yeah, I agree.
but they sucked the life out of that. That match was okay, but after trying to compete against
Yeah.
Austin, I mean, even Austin and Scott Hall had fire in it, for the short term it was. But how can you go up against the juggernaut of Hulkamania in Toronto? There's no way.
Yeah. That was the. I mean, you had the women's triple threat match just after Hogan and Rock, and the crowd wasn't that much into that match between Lita, Trish, and Jazz, and they definitely weren't. They were wore out for Jericho and Triple H, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And even with that being Triple H's return after an injury and back to the team champion again, it just, like you said, it wasn't. The placement on that card should have been different than what it was, because Hogan and Rock definitely took everything out of the crowd. In a good way, but not in a good way for those two matches that followed.
Yeah. Still to this day, I still feel like Hogan Rock should have been the main event because it was
Yes.
more star-studded.
Right. I'd agree. And I feel like part of that is that this was Jericho's first reign as champion. I mean, yes, he's technically from Canada, but still, you're not going to get Triple H and Jericho weren't going to get no bigger of a reaction than Hogan and Rock were going to. Plain and simple. There's a recipe for failure. But those two matches alone, I feel like, were the two best matches probably really on the show. Austin and Hall, like you said, had a decent match. Edge and Booker had a decent match.
It was over shampoo.
None of them were all that great compared to. Huh?
The Booker T and Edge match was over shampoo.
Yeah. Which is stupid, but I mean, the match itself, I mean, when you put those two guys in the ring. I guess it was XIX. Oh, well. Anyway, we'll move on past that. Like we said, Hogan and Rock should have been the main event, but that's there. That's in the past. WrestleMania 19, though. This was kind of a changing of the guard, almost on the way out of the Attitude Era in a way. We would see, of course, the final match between The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania. The final match for Austin at that point in time, which, of course, years later, we had him back 2 years ago for one more match. A really good match between Rock and Austin. It was one of the... Can't go wrong with any of their matches at WrestleMania, I feel like, between Rock and Austin. But many people might argue which one was the best. This one was really good. I mean, this was the only time you see Rock. Well, you'd see Austin as the face, Rock as the heel again, as usual. the second match was both guys were baby faces going in. Austin comes out as heel. There's different aspects of it. This was the only time The Rock got the win over Austin. Maybe that'll happen differently some other time, somewhere down the line. Who knows? But we'll see. But of course, in the main event of coming out party, if you will, for the Beast incarnate himself, Brock Lesnar, as he would have an amazing match with Kurt Angle. The one thing that sticks out in my mind the most from that match, though, Brock missing the shooting star press. It looked like he broke his freaking neck.
Oh, I mean, hands down, that was, yeah, that was a scary sight. I mean, holy crap. I mean, I wasn't expecting Brock Lesnar to do a shooting star press and Kurt Angle concuss.
Right. Of course, that was I would say the biggest match in Kurt Angle's career to that point at WrestleMania as well.
Yeah. I'm just looking at something for a minute, but isn't WrestleMania 19 Undertaker was 10-0 or 9-0?
9-0 going in, I think, or maybe 10-0, one or the other.
Yeah.
This is where he had the handicap match anyway.
Yeah, against A-Train and the Big Show.
Yeah. It was supposed to be Taker and Nathan Jones versus A-Train and Big Show.
Yep, but Vince pulled him because the guy... Actually, the reason why they pulled him because they found him passed out with some somethings on his nose.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
He still got a chance to be involved after the match.
Yeah. But hands down, I think the match that I love from that WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho.
Right?
I thought that was an excellent match.
Yeah, I would say that was definitely the best match on the entire card, or one of the best matches. I mean, Brock and Kurt had a great match. Rock and Austin always did, but Shawn and Jericho definitely proved what they can do. I think the biggest on the whole show was what Jericho did after the match, though.
Yep. And then what I call it, the senior match.
When he low blowed Shawn.
The senior match is Hogan versus Vince.
Yeah. That Roddy Piper would get involved in.
But at least we get...
That was kind of a crappy match. Hogan would have...
But at least after that match, we got Mr. America.
At least we get... Sure, that was a good thing.
Yeah, it wasn't.
At least it didn't last very long, I guess. But
oh, for the love of God!
It's really is changing the guard more so out of the Attitude Era into the new era. But speaking of the new era, When you move from WrestleMania 19, of course, you go back to Madison Square Garden, the Mecca, for WrestleMania 20. This night, the first match I'm going to mention and bring up here was the handicap match. Of course, you got Evolution, the Animal Batista, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and the Intercontinental Champion at the time, the Legend Killer Randy Orton, going up against The Rock and Sock Connection, the returning great one, The Rock, and Mick Foley, Mankind. It had been a long time, really, at that point, since we had seen The Rock in action in WWE. As he took a hiatus not long after WrestleMania 19. But Mick was able to bring him back for this one night only. And Rock and Mick looked like they hadn't really missed a beat as a tag team, even though they hadn't teamed together in quite some time. Unfortunately for them, the numbers game were too much for them, and Randy would pick up the win for Evolution. But still was a really good handicap match between those five guys. Kind of a coming out party for Randy and Batista.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, and also talking about WrestleMania 20. I mean, we've seen him at WrestleMania 19 as he came out for a segment early on in the show, but WrestleMania 20 was the where we'd see John Cena, of course, as he'd kick off the show, beating the Big Show in the United States Championship.
And Pickens show up for the FU, or what we call it now, the Attitude Adjustment. Yep. That I was at that Mania, and I was like, wow, he picked up the big Paul White, and Big Show wasn't a lightweight back then. I mean, that John Cena had so much power, no. It's ridiculous.
Right? Sure, he was over 500 pounds at that point in time, so also on that card, ticket to the other extreme, the shitty match on the card, of course. The crowd was all over both of these guys because they were both leaving afterwards. Of course, talking about Brock Lesnar and Bill Goldberg. Stone Cold Steve Austin was a guest referee, and the crowd was cheering more for Austin than they were either Goldberg or Lesnar, because we all knew those two guys were both leaving the company after this match.
Oh, I'm sorry. I went to the bathroom.
Which I'm sure you can speak on a little bit better since then. I don't blame you. That match sucked. The only good thing about it was the stunners to both guys at the end of it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I was at the Garden for that match. When they both came out and they got booed, I'm like, oh, I could either go to the bathroom, get something from the concession stand, or just take a nap here for a while, because it's going to suck.
Right. We'd get the return. You guys would get, of course, the return of the Phenom, The Undertaker, after he'd been out for months, after he'd gone through the American Badass phase. Finished that, we got the Dead Man back as he'd go up against Kane in their second encounter at WrestleMania. Taker, of course, would win again. Great to see that version of Undertaker back at that point in time after we'd had the American Badass for a few years. Paul Bearer being out with the Undertaker was amazing at that point in time. Fortunately, them two being together wouldn't last too terribly long, which it should have lasted longer, but still was great. And you can't go without talking about WrestleMania 20 without mentioning the two world title matches. I'm not really going to talk about the triple threat world title match because of who won it. I mean, I was excited at the time, as I think we all were. But Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle, WWE Championship. Great match. Eddie, up to his usual lie, cheating, and stealing ways, cheats his way to victory over Kurt Angle. Eddie being Eddie, pretty much. Latino Heat.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's Eddie Guerrero. You know, I mean, you know, what do you expect?
Right? And at the end of the show, that you thought would last the test of time, but then everything that happened in highlights.
Yeah.
But I digress from that. There was a women's hair versus title match as well. Victoria defeated Molly Holly to retain the women's title in a cut to shave Molly's hair. But other than that, not much else really to talk about from that show.
Yeah, and
That's what
Trish
we
turned heel.
She did turn heel that show, didn't she?
Yep, she smacked Jericho, and Jericho
Yeah, because she
lost to
helped
Christian.
Christian. Yeah. Yep. That's where Trish and Christian started being aligned together. I won't repeat. Shall we go Hollywood with WrestleMania 21? Of course, WrestleMania 21 was the debut of the Money in the Bank ladder match. Forgot about that WrestleMania ladder match, but would win. Yeah. But the show would kick off with a first time ever happening, as we'd see tag team champions face each other, as Rey Mysterio, one half of the WWE Tag Team Champions, would face his good friend Latino Heat, Eddie Guerrero, the other half of the WWE Tag Team Champions. Anytime those two guys were in the ring together, whether it was WCW, ECW, or WWE, you always knew you were in for a treat.
I mean, yeah, I mean, Eddie and Ray, man, they tore it down. I mean, you go back to WCW when they had that match at Halloween Havoc. I mean, they tore it down. I mean, Eddie was damn. I mean, I wish
Right.
he was still. I wish he was still here today, because what would the LWO look
Me
like
too.
if Eddie Guerrero was still around?
Man, that would, wow. That's a good question. I could see him being their manager, if nothing else.
Yeah. I could see him yelling at people like, listen, you know who I am, you know, and I feel like, no offense to Ray's doing a hell of a job trying to honor Eddie with the LWO, but
Right.
it's not Eddie Guerrero's LWO. I mean, Eddie legit hated Eric Bischoff. That's why the LWO was formed, you know, and yeah, I just wish Eddie was around to tweak it a little bit.
Right. I get you. Yeah, they had a great match. Ray managed to slip out a victory here over Eddie. Something that would eat up Eddie later in the year.
Oh,
Then Edge won the Money in the Bank match ever.
You mean the custody battle with Dirty Dom.
Yes. Yep. That we'd get later in the year. Also, at this Mania, we'd get one of Undertaker's best matches at that point in time. I felt like, I mean, I said it with Kane at WrestleMania 14, but even this match even surpassed that one. Felt like Undertaker one-on-one with Randy Orton, who was just amazing in his role as the Legend Killer at that point in time. And honestly, they were starting to play up. I mean, a couple years before that, they had started playing up the Undertaker's undefeated streak, and I personally could have seen Randy Orton being the one to defeat the Undertaker's undefeated streak at this WrestleMania. He didn't, but I easily could have seen it happening.
Wow. You know what? Damn, I gotta agree with you. I mean, that was. Yeah, I could have seen it, but I understand why they continued it. Yeah.
Could you imagine what it would have done for Randy Orton's career if he would have won over the WrestleMania? Not that he needed it, because he's the third generation superstar as it is, but still.
Yeah.
At that point in time in his career.
I agree. I think it would have skyrocketed him. Evolution, if he would have knocked off Taker, his name, we already know his name's going to be in the Hall of Fame, but still, this would have got him to the Hall of Fame,
right?
At WrestleMania 22.
Pretty much. That seemed weird. But yeah, besides that, they had a great match, though, that Taker would win. Kurt and Shawn. You can't go without mentioning them in this WrestleMania as well.
Yeah, I still
because
think
Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels put on a.
I still think that Kurt Angle should have came out as Sexy Kurt.
Right? Of course, that would be what him and Sherry would sing on SmackDown a couple weeks before WrestleMania.
I'm just a sexy Kurt. I'm gonna make your ankle hurt. Ankle hurt.
Yeah, and that'd be one of the rare times that you'd actually see Shawn Michaels tap out to a submission hold too. That was something you didn't usually see Shawn do. Of course, the other two big matches at WrestleMania 21, which probably one of the best WrestleManias up to that point. The changing of the guard, if you will. First, John Cena defeats DL to become the new WWE champion, the first of his, right now, 16 world titles. But in the main event, you get the winner of the Royal Rumble, the Animal, Batista, going out there and defeating his former mentor, the Game, Triple H, to become the new World Heavyweight Champion. The year before, we had kind of a changing of the guards with who won the two titles or retained and won the titles. But this year, WrestleMania 21 just felt even different as you see Batista and Cena walk out as champions.
Yeah. Just a quick note about the Batista, and it's my opinion, but the Batista and Hunter match, I don't know what it was, but 21, 20, 19 and 18. Triple H had some shitty matches.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Him and Jericho couldn't get a lick because of the Hogan, the Hogan situation in Toronto. Then fast forward to 19. No offense to the five-time WCW champion, but Booker T was not ready for that echelon, and that match was just a shitty match between him and that, and then go to 20. We already know what the circumstances was. It was a triple threat match, and Hunter was hurting injury-wise. And then basically 21, he got destroyed.
He did. He'd get destroyed even worse in the Hell in the Cell match, I feel like, that they'd have the next month. But
I'm not trying to pick on Triple H, but yeah, them consecutive matches at Mania, and his standards, were they good? Yes. And our standards, they were not that great.
right. I'd agree. All right. Anything else you want to mention about 21 before I move on to Chicago?
Let's go to Chicago, baby.
Windy City we go. WrestleMania 22. Now, Triple H, this, of course, was a WrestleMania that he would miss out on because he got injured in January at New Year's Revolution that year. Otherwise, he would have been in the main. Went ahead of myself a year. The main event of this show. Correction. I'm thinking 23. It would have been a rematch.
Yeah.
But how dare I forget that? But 22 was a pretty good showing for the most part. I mean, RVD wins Money in the Bank ladder match. We get the hardcore match between Edge and Mick Foley. Incredible, might I add. Seeing Edge spear Mick Foley through the flaming table. It's something that'll live on forever, I feel like, even though he's not part of WWE and they might not show it now as often, but still, it's something you still see. That leading to Edge's win, that kind of cementing the Rated R Superstar persona for Edge, I felt like. We've talked about it on our weekly shows, review shows. We mentioned it. I can't go without mentioning the Women's Championship match at WrestleMania 22. Of course, Trish Stratus defended against her super fan, if you will, Mickie James, who had gone cuckoo, if you will, in this whole storyline. She was obsessed with Trish, leading to the turn on Trish and the match where Mickie would become women's champion, much to the delight of the Chicago crowd, who was definitely in the side of James in her corner, more so than Trish's, even though Trish was supposed to be the babyface going into the match. But Chicago's always been wacko world.
Hey, look at this past Monday.
Right? But beyond that, I mean, even we got the abysmal, sorry to say it, but the abysmal match between Shawn and Vince, no holds barred. You had Taker and Mark Henry in a casket match was okay. Of course, Ray winning his first World Heavyweight Championship in the triple threat over Kurt and Randy, which was a really good match. Although to be honest with you, even though I know they were playing off of the whole Eddie Guerrero passing away before that, I still kind of think Randy should have been the one to win the world title there, but I understand he had his demons. There was things that were holding back from giving him the world title at that point in time. Kurt was on fire. He could have easily retained, but Ray was the sentimental favorite, even though the crowd was more so in the corner of Kurt Angle going into this match. They still had a great match. Probably the best match on the card. Cena and Triple H had a pretty decent match for the main event. Cena wins, retains with the SCF tap out.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Stuck out most to you.
I'm sorry to say it, but I have to disagree with you. I always felt like that night belonged to Rey Mysterio because of, Eddie being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I mean, I felt like what way to honor your friend is to be World Heavyweight Champion. I mean, I love Randy. Kurt was on fire, but I think they made the right move to put the title on Ray. I mean, that's my opinion.
Maybe I'd feel differently if his title reign would have been more than what they gave him.
Most definitely.
I felt like the title reign they gave him wasn't that great.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with that part. Yeah, and the biggest moment of the night, you got to give it up to Mick and Edge. I mean, shit, Mick was not a full-time wrestler at the time of that, and he goes in and he does shit like that. I mean, more power to him. I mean, Mick took some shots, and Ed took some shots, and still to this day, Ed said that he could still see the scar where his eyebrows got burned off.
Right.
But it is what it is. But we have, I mean, the Shawn Michaels match with Vince was, should have never happened.
Right.
But I mean, that's basically it. There were some good matches, and then there was just some clunkers.
That's for sure. All right, we'll move on from Chicago to Detroit. Back into the Motor City we go for the first time since WrestleMania 3. Whoops, wrong button. Of course, WrestleMania 23 was where I was leading to earlier. Shawn Michaels and John Cena had a classic main event match at WrestleMania 23. One where Shawn would tap out before in the STF. The Cena and Hunter match before was still a really, I mean, Shawn Michaels, what do you expect, I guess, really?
Yeah, it's Shawn. Shawn does.
And I don't mean that any offense to Triple H.
That's why they call him Mr. WrestleMania.
Shawn's a showstopper for a reason. Also on that card, of course, I'm sure many people still think about, was the Battle of the Billionaires, if you will. As you got Bobby Lashley with Donald Trump in his corner, going up against Umaga with Armando Alejandro and Mr. McMahon in his corner, where the winner, or where the loser rather, would end up having to have their head shaved, managers wise, and Lashley would win, which we'd get with Stone Cold as referee in there, by the way. Lashley and Austin would hold Vince McMahon in the chair as Donald Trump would shave the head of Mr. McMahon. Pretty decent match between Lashley and Umaga. Everything else kind of just could throw out the window, to be perfectly honest. But
yeah,
that's what that was, pretty much. But other than that, more stuff from WrestleMania 23. The Mr. Kennedy won the Money in the Bank ladder match. He'd fizzle out and never really accomplish anything off of it, but he'd lose it to Edge, and Edge would cash in later. To me, Cena and Michaels was really good. However, I felt like the best match really on the card was for the World Heavyweight Championship between the Animal Batista, who was champion going in, and the Phenom, The Undertaker, who walked out as world champion.
I think the best moment about WrestleMania 23 was hands down Taker and Batista, because they beat the living crap out of one another.
And I mean, Taker and Batista would have a rivalry that would go on for months after that, and they'd end in some draws, but I still feel like Taker and Batista is one of the maybe less talked about rivals of Undertaker's that I feel like should be talked more about, because I felt like it was one of the best rivalries he's had.
Oh, hands down. Hands down. Was it this the what was
Yeah,
it,
that's what I
was
meant.
it was it this the WrestleMania that we had the ECW originals going them against the ECW New Breed or some shit like that?
Yes, it was. Yep,
Yeah, let's not talk about that match.
that it was. I wasn't planning on it.
Good,
You
thank
brought
you.
it up.
No, but I just want to make sure that people know we still believe in ECW originals, but the other stuff is just okay. Let's move on to 24.
Yeah, right. All right. So we move on and move out of Detroit. Move away from Ford Field into sunny Orlando, Florida for WrestleMania 24. The Citrus Bowl. And for WrestleMania 24, we got some clunkers in there again, but some pretty good stuff as well. I gotta mention that CM Punk winning the Money in the Bank ladder match for the first time. Batista and Umaga had a decent match on there. ECW title was on the line as Kane beat Chavo Guerrero in one of the shortest matches in WrestleMania history. Yeah, we'll talk about those. You, of course, have the no disqualification match between a boxer and a wrestler. Floyd Money Mayweather versus The Big Show. Not going to talk about it, but it happened. Floyd Mayweather won with a knockout. But we'll get into the good stuff. And I'm going to leave that for last, even though it wasn't the main event. Randy Orton will threat match beat Triple H Cena to retain the WWE Championship. Shocking, I felt like, because I don't think anybody really expected Randy to retain there. I think people were more so figuring either Cena or Triple H would win. But the Viper did manage to slither his way into retaining the WWE Championship on that night.
Excuse me. Hands down, I actually thought Hunter was going to win, but yeah, Randy winning was a complete shock.
For sure. That match, I'll go into the main event, and then there's one other match I'll mention after that. The Undertaker and Edge. Again, like Batista, Edge is one of the greatest rivals in the Undertaker's history, I would say. It's down. Those two had great matches as well. And this would be the only match in the Undertaker's undefeated streak that he would win by submission. He would use the Hell's Gate to beat Edge to win the WWE, or to win the World Heavyweight Championship, rather. Win it back-to-back years at WrestleMania. A really good match. I won't say their best match in their rivalry, but it was still a really good match at WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. To me, I think their best match was the Hell in the Cell.
Yeah, I'd agree. Felt like it was as well. But when you talk about WrestleMania 24, there's one match in particular that's on most people's mind. That, of course, being the Nature Boy Ric Flair versus the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels.
Woo!
In what was Ric Flair's farewell match, WWE-wise anyways. I mean, we've seen him have matches since then. But just really a really good emotional match. To me, Ric Flair has never been the greatest technical wrestler or greatest in-ring wrestler. He's more flamboyant and has some mic skills and all that stuff. But these two just had, with everything we knew going into it that was surrounding this match, Rick going into the Hall of Fame the night before, they put on a classic to end Ric Flair's WWE career, in-ring career. Yeah, I love you, Kiss, Sweet Chin Music.
Hands down, one of the greatest matches. You know, Flair, Shawn at Mania. I still, to this day, and this is a long time since that match happened, I still think that should have been Ric Flair's final match. Go out with a bang. He don't need to do what he's doing now. He can still be the Nature Boy.
Right.
But I think he's tarnishing his career thinking that he can still do what he does. I understand the limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheel stealing. But I think WrestleMania 24 should have been his farewell. What does he have to accomplish? He's a 2-time Hall of Famer, 16-time world champion. You know, the greatest of all time. You know, you don't need to do what you're doing now. You're basically you're living on your morals. You're still living like, I'm the Nature Boy. I got to be around. We want you around, but you don't need to be in the ring hurting yourself. So, you know, I just felt like WrestleMania 24 should have been his farewell.
Swan song, if you will. Yeah, I'd agree. It was definitely would have been a great way to end it all together because he got his moment in the sun. He got to be there with his family. Both of his boys, both of his girls were there. What better way to end your in-ring career?
Yeah.
You said, of course, he's gone on and tarnished it since. Tried to.
Yeah. I mean, going to TNA and basically fighting Hogan and Sting and starting up a more what the hell is this? Fortune. I mean,
Immortal.
is it Immortal or in Fortune? What was it in TNA?
Fortune, yeah. Immortal was Fortune was the group. Yeah.
I just feel like, Nate's done it all. What more? How many retirement matches you gonna have? You're gonna be 95, walk into the ring with a diaper on. I mean, enough's enough. You're Ric fucking Flair. Take what you got, my brother. You've done it all. Don't ruin your career.
Right. Well, that's how we feel about it, and Nate feels differently, apparently.
Most definitely.
All right. Let's move on to the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, 24 had other celebrity appearances like Snoop. But so we got the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, which was a huge show. Time. The stars were out, if you will. They're in Houston's Reliant Stadium. And that night, of course, marked many things. As the 8 matches took place, CM Punk winning his second straight Money in the Bank ladder match. A Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal would take place. The Legends versus Chris Jericho in a 3-on-1 match. Yeah. For the second time in WrestleMania history, we'd get brother versus brother, and that's the first match we want to really discuss. Matt Hardy versus Jeff Hardy Extreme Rules match. Those two brothers definitely put it all on the line.
Is that when he duct taped them to the table?
I think so, yeah. They had a really good match, I thought, there. They've had matches after that, too, but Matt ended up picking up the win over Jeff at WrestleMania that year, though, which was surprising because I figured Jeff Hardy probably would get the win. From there, I mean, Extreme Rules, of course, ladders, tables, all that were involved. We get another short match also on that card as Rey Mysterio would beat JBL in 21 seconds to become the Intercontinental Champion, which would be JBL's final match at that point in time. He'd come back eventually, but and also John Cena would beat Big Show and Edge in a triple threat match to win the world title. Pretty decent triple threat match. Triple H would beat Randy Orton to win the WWE Championship. But I think there's only one match that people really think about when they think of the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. It is a match that many people these days say is the greatest match in WrestleMania history and maybe wrestling history. as we got the Phenom, The Undertaker, versus Mr. WrestleMania himself, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, and definitely, easily, an instant classic.
About that WrestleMania, hell yeah, you're right. Shawn and Taker, man, they blew the roof off of Reliance Stadium. I mean, they basically, still to this day, anything you hear on the internet, oh, what was your greatest WrestleMania moment? First thing that pops in my mind is Taker and Shawn won. I mean, at WrestleMania, the 25th anniversary. I think it was hands down the best, and that's the first time that you saw The Undertaker give it a little more, and except that one spot when he dove out of the ring and almost broke his friggin' neck. But
Right?
hands down, that was one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. You told me if I'm wrong. That match,
That's for sure.
That match outbeats Randy and Steamboat at WrestleMania 3.
I agree. I feel like when you compare the two, I feel like then maybe this would be a different discussion. But when you compare that to Undertaker catching Shawn Michaels midair from a moonsault and dropping him on his skull with a tombstone pile driver to end the great match that they had, there's no comparison.
No. Hands down, I think right now we already talked about the 25th anniversary. I mean, I'm okay with moving on because I always thought that match stole the show.
It did. All right. And move on. We get to WrestleMania 26. Personally, it was an all right WrestleMania. I seen it live at a friend's house. It was the first one I'd seen live in quite a while. But it had its up and downs like most of them did. Give it that. This was a night where Miz and Big Show retained the tag team titles over Truth and Morrison. Of legacy as we get the triple threat match between Orton, Cody, and DiBiase. Jack Swagger. With all the other names that were in there. Ray versus Punk, where Ray had joined the Straight Edge Society if he lost the match. Triple H versus Sheamus. We'd get a no holds barred lumberjack match. I don't even want to talk about that match really. Jericho and Edge went at it for a world title, which was an okay match. Hated the outcome of it. Cena beat Batista by submission to retain the WWE Championship, and then we got the rematch between Taker and Michaels. Another really good match, but it wasn't quite as good as the match between Taker and Michaels.
I agree that Shawn Michaels Taker 2 at Mania. Yeah, I think they took a step back. In a big way, but it was an okay match.
What match to you if not that one, did you think kind of stole the show, if you will, from that show, from that episode, from WrestleMania 26?
Be honest, I thought it stunk.
Kind of didn't it?
I mean, I know the match you don't want to talk about because, yeah, let's not go there because I know which one you're talking about. And, you know, that whole card was like, I think it was put together by glue.
Possibly. Yeah, I'm glad he got one more match in WWE at that point, or one more WrestleMania, but still, shouldn't have been what it was. Put it that way.
Let's say this. He wasn't the same man.
Right, move on to 27 then.
Oh, God, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, he wasn't the same man as what he used to be.
Yeah.
For sure. Brett wasn't.
Yeah.
So honestly, I know a lot of people say this about this WrestleMania, and I kind of have to agree. This is probably one of the worst WrestleManias in the history of WrestleMania. That being WrestleMania 27. A lot of people say it because of the main event, which we'll get into. But the show altogether wasn't that great. I mean, it started off with Edge for the Rio title, which was okay. And it was Edge's last match at that time for quite a while, for 11 years, or 9 long years, rather. But you could tell Edge wasn't Edge, if you will, going into the match and during the match. And then you got Ray, which was probably one of the best matches on the card. An 8-man tag, that's not worth mentioning. Cole and King, who cares? Orton and Punk had a really good match. Taker and Triple H, no holds barred, was good. A 6-person mixed tag match, which wasn't worth mentioning, and then the main event. So the only thing I will say for the main event is at least Miz got his moment to shine, I guess you could say. He walked in and walked out W champion thanks to The Rock partially beating John. But yeah, there's not much good to talk about when it comes to WrestleMania 27.
I mean, Taker and Triple H was okay, but yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, let's move on to 28.
No offense to Punk and Orton.
Yeah.
All right, WrestleMania 20. Rock hosted 27. Rock would be a part of 28. Of course, WrestleMania 28 would be where?
Miami.
Sheamus beating Daniel Bryan 18 seconds to win the world title. Kane and Orton had a decent match. Big Show and Cody had a good match where Big Show won the Intercontinental title. Tag team match with Marina Menounos involved. Taker and Triple H with Shawn Michaels as the referee inside Hell in a Cell. To me, I think that match was probably the best part of WrestleMania 28.
And yeah, I mean, an end of an era match. Plus, that was the first time that we ever saw the Undertaker's new haircut with the mohawk.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, because on Raw, he cut it. He was cutting it, and it wasn't his real hair, but, you know, they show him cutting his hair because he wanted a rematch with Hunter.
Right.
And then, but I like the way they built it up when the first WrestleMania match with Hunter and Triple H. Taker came out of the cabin to Johnny Cash song, and then Hunter interrupted. I mean, yeah, but
Yeah.
the end of an that was a good one, but the end of an era match was, I think, the best match of the night. I mean, and then you had, you know, once in a lifetime. Well, I'm sorry, once in maybe the lifetime match between, you know, Rock and Cena. You know,
Yeah. Which, of course, would play back here. Rock and Cena had a pretty decent main event match, but again, like I said, I think Taker and Triple H blew it out even out of the water. Punk and Jericho had a pretty decent.
I still think
match
that
as well.
I still think that the end of an era match should have been the main event.
Oh, I'd agree. I understand why they did put it on as a main event, I guess, because it's Rock, but still, Rock was kind of gassed early on in that match between him and Cena the first time around, anyways. You could tell he hadn't been in the ring in quite some time, 8 years. So I don't think, I know this is going off topic a little bit, but since we're talking about The Rock, I don't think we're going to have to worry about that as much when it comes to WrestleMania this year, personally. Not just because it's a tag team match, but I have seen he's been training and working out and kind of doing some matches at home too at times. I think it's going to be much different this time around for him.
Oh, totally agree. I feel like, you know, what was The Rock's last match in WWE? Was it Was it WrestleMania 29? Was his last?
I think it was him. No, because him and Eric Rowan had a very short 8-second match at WrestleMania.
That's right.
3 or something like that.
That's right. Yep, forgot about that one because it was short.
29 was the last long match that The Rock was in.
Yeah.
Last full match, really. We'll get into that. Yeah, so WrestleMania, like we said, was pretty much a 2-match show. No offense to Punk and Jericho. It was a good storyline leading into it. Pretty decent match, but the night belonged to Triple H and Undertaker, really. All right, then we go on to 29, where once in a lifetime becomes twice in a lifetime.
Yep.
We'll get into. That was, of course, East Rutherford, New Jersey, Life Stadium. The night where The Shield made their WrestleMania debut. They would defeat Big Show, Randy Orton, and Sheamus in a 6-man tag match. Yeah, that match don't matter. Team Hell No would retain the tag titles over Big E and Dolph. A huge shocker would happen at this WrestleMania as Chris Jericho would lose to a young upstart by the name of Fandango.
Oh my God, I forgot that. Holy shit.
Right?
Oh my God. And now he's in T.
I don't think
A.
Dirty Dango. Yep. I think a single soul on this planet probably thought he had a chance in hell of beating Chris Jericho at that WrestleMania, other than maybe himself.
Yeah.
But Triple H would beat Brock Lesnar in a no holds barred match, which was okay. The Undertaker. So this is the night after the Undertaker had inducted Paul Bearer into the Hall of Fame. God rest his soul, because Paul had passed away now the year before. The Undertaker and CM Punk put on a hell of a match. You might not have agreed with some of the things that led up to this match, but Taker and Punk had a great match. I wouldn't put it up there, but still another phenomenal match in the streak for The Undertaker. Unfortunately, as we'd find out the year later, it'd be the last win in the streak for The Undertaker, but we'll get into that when we get to WrestleMania 30.
Yeah. Hey, but by the way, let's give Paul. Let's
And then,
give.
of course, you got
Future
Cena
Hall-
and Rock playing it back.
Let's give what's his name his due. I mean, Punk dressed like the Undertaker with his tights, and then who can remember the Hall of Famer Paul Heyman, almost looking like Paul Bearer. I mean, what a way to do a makeup.
Right. Right. It was definitely something that wasn't expected, for sure.
Yeah. I feel like the good match was the Punk Taker match. I felt like the Rock Cena for the WWE Championship was like, oh, we already know who's going to win this because Rock's not staying. He has to do Fast and Furious. So we already know who's going to win the match.
Right.
Oh, wait, it wasn't Fast
Yeah, we
and
did. It was
Furious.
predictable.
It was Hercules.
Yeah, whatever match it was. He suffered he actually Rock in that match. Legitimate torn muscles and tendons around his pelvis, too.
Yeah.
I think that's about all worth mentioning from 29. Shall we move on to 30?
Yep.
The first WrestleMania on the WWE Network. And with that, once it loads here, of course, we'd get the shocker, which I kind of alluded to there a minute ago. But it was in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, which would start off with the segment between the Rock, the Immortal Hulk Hogan, referring to the Superdome as the Silver Dome. As John was alluding, as you were alluding to earlier. Hulk not knowing where he's at, apparently. But it was a very entertaining opening promo between those three guys that we'd never really seen before or since, anyways, to kick off the first WrestleMania on the network. And of course, when you talk about WrestleMania 30, I mean, it's not just WrestleMania, it's YesMania for a reason, which we'll get into. So it starts off with Triple H versus Daniel Bryan, where the winner would be added to the World Heavyweight Championship match later on in the show. Which we all knew going in that there was no way Daniel was going to lose to Triple H, I felt like. But they still had a really good match. Of course, Stephanie would get involved, but Daniel would pick up the win after the knee to advance to the event, which we'll get into. We'd see the Shield defeat the New Age Outlaws and Kane. This was a good guy version of the Shield as they had turned on the Authority. Cesaro would win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, last eliminating the Big Show, which was huge time. This would be the first time at WrestleMania out of 2 times that we would see John Cena one-on-one with Bray Wyatt as well. What is your biggest memory or takeaway from the lead up to the match and that match between Cena and Wyatt?
Oh, man. With the kids' choir singing.
Yes.
That was only thing you heard. He's got the whole world in his hands. It's like, wow, man. Oh, my. And the girl that was singing, and then all of a sudden the lights go out and they all have the mask, the goat face mask on, the sheet mask. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, holy shit. I mean, that's
Right.
the one thing, and I'm going to say this, that's the one thing I miss about Wyndham Rotundo. You know, he made that Bray Wyatt character into something that will live on forever. I still feel like this year should have been his year in the Hall of Fame, but I get it. They want to wait, but I still feel like Bray Wyatt should have been inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I have a feeling it'll be next year since it's not this year by the sound, but we'll see what happens with that. Do you feel like they made the right move in having Cena win that match, though, or do you think Bray Wyatt should have actually won at WrestleMania?
Okay, so I know it's going to become a shocker. I think they made the right move of giving Cena the win because we know what happened 4 years ago.
Right.
So I feel like Wyatt, Bray Wyndham was in another level, but he was just learning the character. I mean, I feel like when he wrestled him at Mania during the COVID era, I think Bray shined. And I think that was the best time for him.
Yeah, I'd agree. I was actually going to say the same thing. At the time, I really thought that Bray should have won because the crowd was so into his character and the whole world seeing he's got the whole world in his hands. But with what we would later see, it definitely was the right call at the time.
And to add on to you, who knows if Bray didn't pass away last year, what would have become of Uncle Howdy and his faction? I mean,
right.
We would never know. It's a shame when you lose somebody that is talented as him. I mean, the man went from Husky Harris to a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that he did. That is true. All right, and of course, the event. I'm skipping over a match, but we'll get into it in a minute. In the main event, we see Daniel Bryan beat Batista and Randy Orton to win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. To coin the phrase "WrestleMania," the Mania 30. Great seeing him get the tap out victory over Batista in his moment. Daniel Bryan, much deserved. Yes. But outside of that, there's one other thing that everybody talks about from WrestleMania 30 that I still personally don't agree with, and I think a lot of people don't really. That, of course, was the end of The Undertaker's undefeated streak at the hands of the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar.
First of all, I want to thank you as our host, and how much you are right about this. The streak should have never ended with Brock. Brock was already established as a beast, as a former UFC World Heavyweight Champion. He didn't need this, and they gave it to him.
Right.
Yeah, the Undertaker should have had more, but nobody knows if the Undertaker was the one that decided, or was it Vince? And
I've heard that Taker didn't want to do it, and Vince pretty much forced his hand.
yeah. But at the time, do you have any other guy that could have had a match with Taker at WrestleMania 30 and would have broke the streak?
Yeah. Oh.
I don't see anybody.
It should have been somebody other than Brock. No. So
Oh my
to me, like I said before, I felt like Randy could have done it when they had their. Oh, go ahead.
I have somebody. You just mentioned him. We just praised him for his ability.
Yeah.
But it was the next WrestleMania that they would have had him. They had a match. I think Brock should have
Right.
lost, and the Undertaker was 21-0. Come WrestleMania 31 in San Fran, which we would get to, I think Bray Wyatt would have been great.
I'd agree. Because his character was, I feel like, even more evolved come WrestleMania 31.
Mm-hmm.
So
that would have skyrocketed him to the new phenom.
right. Yes, I agree. I'd have been fine with that. I know people always say that Roman should have done it because he was the other person to beat Undertaker at WrestleMania, but I don't think he really needed it.
I mean, no, because look at his bloodline. I mean, I'm not saying because he's part of the bloodline, but his family, he's a Samoan dynasty.
No, I get that.
They don't need any more accomplishments. They already got enough.
Right. Maybe a second. It'll be a lengthy fucking episode.
Yeah.
Once I got things to load here, we'll get into 31. Let the good times roll.
Yeah, my God, I remember that song. Hello, hi. Have no idea what Tony is, but yeah, let's talk about WrestleMania 31. Yeah, you had the match of with the Icon Sting versus Triple H. I felt like Sting should have won that match because, you know, he was a legend of WCW and Triple H was a legend of WWE. So yeah, I see that one going. And then you had Cena and Rusev for the United States Championship. I think it was well taken care of with that. Other one you have Taker and Bray Wyatt. What a good match between them two. That was really good. And then the IC title ladder match. I forgot who won that, but that was a good match. And then you had Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, and Randy Orton did that excellent move, RKO. Hey, it is Tony.
Sorry about that. My computer decided to crash there for a second.
It's all right. I was up to the Randy Orton,
Gotta love
RKO, and Seth Rollins.
The greatest RKO in WrestleMania, if not Randy Orton's career history.
And then I mentioned the match.
Elevated RKO.
Then I mentioned the match between Sting and Triple H, which I still think that Triple H should have lost that match because that was Sting's first only WrestleMania.
I agree.
I mean, and then you had Rusev and John Cena. I mean, what are you gonna say about it? It's John Cena, Rusev for the United States title. I mean, yeah. And then
that was a good match that Rusev had.
Yeah. I mean, I did like when he came out with a tank. I mean, I was like, oh, holy crap. You know, that's something. You know, and then I was missing. Oh yeah, the main event between Lesnar and Roman and the cash-in around the world when Seth Rollins became the WWE champion by cashing in at WrestleMania. Yeah, I mean, that was the best
thing. The World Heavyweight Championship.
And maybe we will get that at this year's WrestleMania?
Possibly. I wouldn't be too surprised, honestly. Yeah. One other thing to mention from WrestleMania 31, I don't know if you got to it while I was trying to fix things, but the 7-man ladder match that kicked off the show for the Intercontinental Championship.
I did, and I forgot who won that.
It was a stellar match. Daniel Bryan.
I couldn't hear it because you won in and
out. WrestleMania 30 is WWE World Heavyweight Champion. He started 31 is the Intercontinental Champion, Daniel Bryan.
And then he gave up. Then he had to relinquish it.
Yeah, walked in as champion, and Daniel Bryan walked out as champion at WrestleMania 31.
Yeah,
but it was a great multi-person ladder match to kick off the show. Like you said, Sting should have beat Triple H. Was the issue with that? No DQ match. Orton and Rollins had a great match. Cena and Rusev was pretty good for the U.S. title. Taker and Wyatt had a really good match, bounce back match for Taker, who was early on in the match concussed against Brock the year before. Seth with the cash in, the heist of the century is Michael. The best part, really, of that entire WrestleMania.
Most definitely.
The cash in is what's going to be the most, I feel it.
I don't mean to do, but do you want Do you want to do the last 8 this weekend? Because we've been on this thing for 3 hours.
Three hours.
Yeah.
If you want to, we can stop here and then finish
Yeah,
up
we'll do
sometime
the
later this
last.
week.
Yeah, we'll do the last 8. The 8. I'm not trying to be rude. We love you guys. We love doing this, but yeah, I need a drink. I'm all dried out.
That's why I always have to drink close by.
I mean,
It's all
hell.
good.
I mean,
No
hell. We
problem.
made
I
it.
mean,
I mean, hell. We made it to 31. Give ourselves a hand. You know?
right?
Yeah. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Plus, I want to have some dinner.
So, yeah, I need to too. But I'm available tomorrow and Friday, both days I'm off still. Saturday I work a mid shift, and of course Sunday's Easter. So whatever you're
I gotta go to service tomorrow because it's Monday, Thursday. Can we do it around 8 o'clock tomorrow if you wanna?
I can do that.
Yeah, let's do it at 8 o'clock because I can't do it Friday because I got a sleep study.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, let's do it tomorrow at 8
Yeah,
o'clock.
all right. Well, then tomorrow at 8 o'clock, we'll start with WrestleMania 32 all the way through 39. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about WrestleMania 40 as we get to the end of it, though.
Most
We won't give our
definitely.
predictions quite yet. Not until next Friday.
Yep, and too bad that we can't play the old WrestleMania theme song for this. This will be perfect at this time.
And we'll see. Maybe John, Ian, or Kevin, if he wants to, can join us tomorrow night. But we'll find out. We'll see what's going on.
Most definitely. But again, thank you so much, my good sir. I acknowledge you.
Well, thank you. Always a pleasure.
You know, and before we go,
And with that-
people, me and Tony, we are the ones.
Got that right.
Mhm.
We'll catch
Bye.
you guys tomorrow night.